Hello, everybody. This is the November meeting to Waterfront Parks and Environment Manhattan Community Board 4. I'm Leslie Boghosi Murphy, co-chair. I'm here at Marty DeCat, other co-chair. I want to start by saying greetings and welcome to the committee and guests. MCB4 is a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and or an extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. This meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel and a transcript is being recorded. It also lives, I believe, forever, right, Janine? On YouTube, or maybe not forever. Nothing is forever, but for a very long time, if anyone wants to go back to the recording. So we have parks heavy agenda. It's all parks today. Usually what we do at the beginning of each WPE meeting, New York Parks provides just a general agency update, the different parks, what's going on. Today, we're just going to have, we're actually very lucky and very happy to have the director of PEPs here, which is the patrol officers of the park, Eddie Falcone. He's the director of PEPs for all of New York City. We're trying to get him off mute. But I don't know. Oh, Eddie, can you hear me?
Eddie. Yes, hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah, is that the highest it could go?
My apologies, I'm sorry, I can't connect, I'm having audio.
Closer here. Yeah. Okay, Eddie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So, you're right now in the middle of a table around the WPE committee and, also some members of the public that are here for you and some various other things. But if it's okay with everyone, just like a casual raise of hands, if we can just flip the agenda, because I think Eddie has somewhere to go and PEPs has somewhere to go, and we can just do the PEPs item first and then go to the general parks. Is that okay with everyone? Yes. Great. So why don't we start then, just a little bit of background. The park enforcement patrol officers are the ones, they're a little bit like the NYPD for parks. They're the ones that do the enforcement within the parks. Not outside, that obviously would be NYPD. NYPD, though, just FYI, is also allowed to enforce within the parks. But PEPs is just specific to the parks. And the reason why the Parks Department is here today and PEPs is here today is because they graciously accepted our invitation, because we've had a few talks about different parks across our district, a few in particular, but that we're having some problems with, maybe some activity after park closing. Sometimes we can't even close up because of the park, because there are people in the park, and really park staff is not trained, nor should they try and start kicking people out. But they're not joined by PEPs, and that's another PEPs related activity, I guess. So I guess we just want to kind of have PEPs here to talk about what we're concerned about, what we've brought up, and since we have them in parks here, they can answer any of our questions or our concerns. So Eddie, do you just wanna, if you can you just give like a little bit of a, I don't wanna say a presentation, but a description of what you do, what PEPs does, and just for people in the room and on the recording who are listening in.
Well, sure, thank you. Again, thank you everyone for having me. My apologies for the audio issue. Yes, so I oversee special operations for our park enforcement patrol officers. Our patrol officers are unarmed peace officers. We do have arrest authority, we do have summons authority, and we patrol basically all city parks. And I have a team that's assigned to the Manhattan South area that covers basically Battery Park to 59th Street. And that's the team that I'll be highlighting today. So I'll be happy to take any questions, any concerns, any way I can help. You now have the ears of park enforcement, and moving forward, we're in communication.
Before we have questions, can you just tell us, like, at least in our district, the staffing, how much, what kind of staffing does it look like in our district? What are the times, the hours? What are the problem areas you've seen over the last maybe year or two? Think just a little bit of a description specific to our district.
Okay, my functions are citywide and the captain wasn't able to join this call. So for more specific stuff, I'm counting on you guys to give me what your concerns are. I could tell you a little bit about what our team already does. But our team works currently a 9:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. tour. We have one captain, one sergeant, and they have 3 officers that are assigned to the entire Manhattan South area from 59th Street to Battery Park. So I saw one of your questions on the email was limitations, and I would say one of our limitations is maybe my staffing restraints.
Okay, so I just want to confirm, you have 5 people for all of Lower Manhattan every day?
Yes, that's what's assigned currently.
I mean, there's families in Hell's Kitchen bigger than that. Like, what do you mean? I honestly, did anyone know this? Pep said 5 people?
Well, I mean, when they said that having 1 per community district in Manhattan, which would be 12, was too much, kind of makes sense.
It doesn't make sense, but
Well, it doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
but this is not surprising.
yeah, it's a little slightly surprising, considering I actually went to my daughter's lacrosse game and there were 4 of them taking like I don't know if he was homeless or not, but taking him out. So I guess everyone in Manhattan was at that one park at that one time, recently. Okay, is there any, I know you said that you don't have your captain leader, is that what you call him here for our district, but are you aware of any problem areas in our district or maybe areas that are flagged to you?
Yes, when I did speak to the captain today in regards to the meeting, I know Hell's Kitchen, that is in your area, that's your district?
Yes.
Yeah, so recently Hell's Kitchen has been an issue. There was complaints about unleashed dogs and drug concerns.
What was the first thing? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
The first item was dogs off the leash
Oh, dogs.
and drug use
Drug use in the parks?
in the park, yes.
Do you see a difference between Hell's Kitchen and Chelsea? Like, are there any problems?
It's a huge, well, I know personally, there's a huge difference between, Hell's Kitchen is a lot smaller. Chelsea's just has a lot more homeless. It's just a bigger park and more conditions.
No, I got you, alright. Before I go on, why don't we open it up, and if you have any questions, Matt, go ahead.
Thanks. On the staffing that you have, how has that compared over the years? I mean, have you had 5 members of your team over the last few years? Has that been decreased over the last few years? Has that gone up? Just curious what those staffing levels have looked like.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's discouraging for me to answer because this is what our staffing has basically been like the last few years. And maybe some summer season might have been a little less because of our pools and beaches. Might have had 2 officers running around with a sergeant. I'm trying to be totally honest with you folks. But yes, that's what our staffing has normally looked like.
When you say a few years, is that like pre-2020, you had more staff and it's gone down, or earlier has staffing
No, I
been
wouldn't
fine?
say, I would say like the last, even before COVID, that's basically what our staffing numbers allowed in the South area.
Before COVID, you were at 5?
Say that again?
Before 2020 COVID, you were still at 5?
Something like that, yes.
Okay.
I don't know
So it's
exactly.
been 5 for over 5
I've
years.
never had a large volume of staff and available
Okay.
as I should running around. So.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Katie?
Do you know, so if this has been your staffing for the last few years, what was the peak staffing? Like, was there ever a time where there was like substantially more? Do you know like what that number might have been?
Sorry, I don't want to get misquoted. I really don't have a number.
Okay.
Like I answered before, I really don't have numbers that were bigger than 5. It's been basically like that throughout as far as I know.
Got it. So I guess, if it's been this way for a while, Are you noticing an increase in calls for PEP and need for PEP?
Yeah, I've never seen more than calls for park enforcement. We're not the best kept secret any longer. We have all kind of community boards and council members looking for us citywide. But yeah, I do see a little uptick in some of the concerns with park enforcement all around, not just in your district, but the entire Manhattan South area.
And my last question relates to, I know that there are PEP officers that are hired by some parks, such as Hudson River Park and Bella Abzug Park. How do those officers factor into this unit? Are they completely separate?
Yes, I didn't include those numbers. I gave you my free agents, the officers that are available to patrol and hit your local parks. We
Okay,
are committed contractually to several parks, Hudson River Park, yes, Bella Abzug, NYU funds Washington Square. You know, we do have contractual obligations, but those are funded separately and not included with the current staff I just mentioned.
and do you have a rough idea of total, how many contractual staff members you have?
I would have to think about it. Washington Square Park, I think, has 4 officers and a sergeant that are funded. That means there's maybe 2 officers and a sergeant on duty almost. Hudson River Park is a large contract. We have 24-hour coverage. The park runs all the way up to 59th Street to down the Battery. So there's like maybe 35 officers that they fund on 3 separate tours.
That's private.
It just seems clear that if you're a private institution that has money for PEP officers, you will get it, and the smaller city parks get nothing. That's just my opinion. You don't have to respond to that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm guessing, like, Washington Square is like Friends of Washington Square, right? I'm guessing like something like that pays for it,
Assigned to the south, it was NYU.
NYU.
or NYU would pay, okay. Ellen, number.
Hi, thank you. I'm actually a new community board member and I was unaware of a parks enforcement unit. So if I'm a resident and I have like a disturbance, I call 311. Is it the parks, the PEPS team that's deployed, or is it the police or whoever's closer? So I've never actually seen like a PEPS officer, so I'm just trying to like understand, are you guys like uniformed or, yeah, uniforms, okay. All right,
Green, all green,
all green,
Yes.
okay,
like their
okay.
sweater.
Yeah, so I guess the question around 311, like who gets deployed, that's my first question. And then the second question was uniform, and then third question is, I've been hearing about these really large teenage parties that go on. Obviously, the weather's too cold, so it doesn't happen. But I did hear about a 250-person teenage party in Brooklyn Bridge Park, where the police had to come and break that up. Do you find that there's a lot of like underage drinking parties for teenagers at the parks past 6:30?
Yes, we do encounter late night partying that's happened just in Highbridge Park, just with the warm weather a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, the Brooklyn, I remember that was going on. Brooklyn North area parks happening a lot. Yeah, there was where we recruit and help and get assistance from NYPD, or NYPD would have to tend to that mostly after our hours.
But that's not happening in our district, in Community Board 4 in Hell's Kitchen and Chelsea, the teenage drinking parties.
I haven't heard that at all in your area. We might have something similar in a smaller scale, like Hudson River Park on the piers. But in your Manhattan sites, I don't recall any conditions like that. And to answer your question about the uniforms, our officers are unarmed. However, they do have defensive equipment, so they're in green, Parks green uniform. They have utility belts, they wear mace, they got a baton, they have a summons book. They look like an officer, similar to a police officer without the gun. And I'm sorry you haven't seen one, but we're gonna make it a point to visit some of your more concerning parks. So maybe you do have your opportunity to visit, to see our officers. As far as your 311 concerns, I'm a big avid user of 311. I recommend it. Some people don't, but we're working with 311 on trying to remedy some of their issues. But it depends what your condition is when you're reporting into 311. We get the illegal vending, the unleashed dogs, a lot of quality of life concerns we get, and we can address those. Encampments and homeless, those go to a homeless outreach option in 311, goes to the homeless providers. They go to DHS and they send out Goddard or Mock, one of their outreach folks. And encampment now, believe it or not, goes to the local precinct. It goes to the precinct, and the precinct comes out and verifies. And then we schedule the whole new mayor's protocol on an encampment removal. But that's how 311 works, and I do recommend it because it's good for tracking purposes at minimum. If we got a complaint in an area, we know, hey, 35 people called regarding this noise complaint that Hell's Kitchen. So we do have, tracking ability with that. And we're working on finalizing our calls, being able to address all our 311 conditions.
Thank you.
Roberta?
So I guess two questions. The first is, how do you decide, or at what point do you decide to allocate personnel officers to various locations? Is this, it sounds like there's probably some use of 311 data and other like complaints and or concerns, but is that sort of happening days or hours after those concerns come in? Or is there something more systematic where you visit every park XYZ number of times per month? I'm sort of curious how that works.
Okay, you're asking how we deploy and how we determine where we're visiting and where we're patrolling?
Yes.
Okay, so 311, again, another big factor on us for visiting sites. So please, if you have conditions, I would suggest you do put them in 311. It does get our attention. Our community concerns, the community involvement, you're talking to the commissioner's office, having Max a phone call away from you guys, that also would get our attention to some of your more concerning sites. But basically it's it's the parks in our districts, conditions that we're aware of, and community complaints, 311. There's a variety of issues, like how I would deploy my staff to go to a certain park in the morning.
That's helpful. And then just sort of a switching of gears, there was the Charter Revision Commission, and you might not know the answer to this, but I would be curious to know. There was a ballot measure that passed in I guess a week and a week ago, relating to the Department of Sanitation's powers to enforce against a variety of transgressions in what appeared to be parks and medians, including illegal vending. Do you know if that will change PEP officers' ability to be the initial respondent to a complaint, or it will change who will be responding to complaints if they come via 311?
Sorry, can you rephrase your question? Is this like you're asking who would respond to a vending condition if you put it in 311?
I'm thinking that my question may require further research, but there was a ballot measure that passed citywide, that expanded the powers of sanitation, the Department of Sanitation, in areas that previously, to my understanding, were primarily this jurisdiction of parks, or NYPD.
Yeah, I think I get it. Yes, we work closely with that team. DSNY has now become the lead. Once PD got kind of hands off on the vending, they gave it to Workers, is another city agency.
PCWP.
PCA.
Yeah.
It used to be Department of Consumer Affairs. They gave it to them, that didn't work out too much, and within the year, they ended up giving it to sanitation enforcement. We work with them, we had a big detail with them throughout Brooklyn and Coney Island. Unfortunately, they won't come inside the park. So they can do all the vending along the perimeter, right outside the park, across the street, but a condition inside the park, that would need park enforcement officers to address.
Eddie, can I just help answer that question? So that ballot measure, we're still unclear the exact specifics of it. We have not changed any standard operating procedures yet. So we're not gonna be direction of City Hall.
Oh,
Which is where exactly-
You sound a little distant, I don't hear you too well.
It's okay, I'm just kind of helping her answer the question.
No.
Since we're an executive
Oh, it's
agency,
okay.
yeah, we report to the mayor. So the legislative branch just passed this. So we have to get City Hall's direction on what to do with that exact ballot measure.
So something may change,
Yeah,
but we
don't-
won't know
We're not
it
sure
yet.
yet, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
You say you had one more question?
No, that was my other question.
Okay,
Thank you.
David.
Hi, Eddie. My name's Dave. Last summer, one evening, I arranged to meet a friend at Jackson Square, which is a park just south of Chelsea. And when I arrived, it must have been a PEPS officer who was locking it up, even though it was earlier than the posted closing time. And she apologized and said that because there was so little staff to make the rounds of all of the gate lockings, they had to do some of them early. And she said, if you get a chance, ask for more staff. So here I am. But is that a thing that's happening? Are parks closing early because of low staff?
I really couldn't answer that honestly because that's not my team. That's a maintenance and operations park closure
Oh,
team.
okay.
They're maintenance folks actually that go out and they're closing the playgrounds. They've called us for assistance, but it's not my officers that go out, so I really couldn't tell you. I do see pages talking too much. I do see pages when they can't close a park because, skill activities not failing to comply, folks not paying attention, I see pages like that, but I really couldn't tell you if they're closing it early. But it kind of makes sense to get them all done.
Yeah, okay. I guess I mistook her for a PEPS officer. She was just a regular park staffer.
Yeah, I would think so, because my staff doesn't close the playgrounds and the parks. And I'm familiar with Jackson Square.
Okay, thank you.
Brad?
Yes, how many total officers are in PEP?
I'm sorry, how many?
Yeah,
What's the question?
There's five. And
How many citywide PEP officers are there that are just doing parks, right, Brad, not contracts? City PEP,
Citywide?
yeah.
Again, I don't have that number offhand and I can't be misquoted, so I'm sorry, I'm unprepared for that question.
Eddie, is there also a way where we could find out how many tickets and the money that you brought in by giving tickets? Is that available?
I guess that would probably be some kind of FOIL request. Maybe a FOIL request, about money coming in. I've never seen that. There's no real income that's being generated for parks alone, just for our summons writing.
So when you write a summons,
Again, say that again, please.
they're not fines, I assume they're fines.
Yeah, no.
There's no way to track
that-
what you're
yeah,
collecting?
That doesn't come, as far as I know, that doesn't come back to parks, and.
The reason I ask is when Bloomberg took over parking tickets and he put it to the Department of Finance instead of took it out of the police hands, you see the jump. It's a dramatic money-making operation. And I'm wondering, is it something that we looked into with parks enforcement to say, all right, how do we get more enforcement? Well, it's gotta feed itself. And then maybe that's a possibility to think a little bit out of the box.
There is a way to look up the summonses, I'll just chime in. It's on open data, I exports this every so often, but it's for all city agencies, but you can sort by parks.
So, Chair, that's kind of what I'm thinking, maybe that's something we explore, because Now it's a full-on beat, parking tickets everywhere, we've got the staff, they can be instructed, we've got dog problems, we got, I think maybe it's a way to increase. Cause we're not gonna get any more budget for the parks, maybe this is a way to generate it.
Yeah. Good job.
Listen, they didn't wanna take it away from the police, and then he put it to the Department of Finance, maybe this section could be assigned to Department of Finance as well. Give them the green uniforms.
Mm. Okay, Katie?
This may not be something that you have a direct answer for, but I think it's something I would be interested to know. What the value of the contracts are for PEP officers to outside parks. Just to have an idea of what they're paying for this service. And if there would be any way that we can ask them chip in a little more, so we can hire more PEP officers for the other parks that can't pay for their own.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell you how much they pay out. Like I said, Hudson River Park is like 35 officers, 7 supervisors, a captain. It's a huge turnout, it's a big park, 24 hours. What we can do is provide a cost out if you guys were to request how many PEP officers during what time and what they would need. Then moving forward, we'll probably be able to get you a cost out and a better idea of what that would cost. Again, talking too much, this was done when the gentleman mentioned Jackson Square. There was a time where we had, I think it was Armani who was backing the cause and was funding staff at Jackson Square many years back.
I think though it's, not to, so like Hudson River Park Trust is state, so that's a state budget, it comes out of the state budget, right?
Well,
It's a
either
state
way,
budget.
they're
So does it-
paying the city for services.
Right, on a contractual basis, and I'm sure there are other parks that are friends of, then there's Bella Abza, which is a bid, like, I'm sure they're different.
They're just,
entities
I'm
that
not
pay.
concerned with who's paying.
No, I know,
I
but
wanna
who
know
wants
the
to pay
dollar,
extra?
I wanna know the dollar amount that's being paid. To have an understanding of, are they paying, the base cost of what the city pays for a PEP officer? Are they paying a premium to have PEP officers do this instead of hiring their own outside security? I would like to know what a PEP officer costs, what one PEP officer costs Hudson River Park, and what one PEP officer costs the city of New York, to have an idea of that comparison. Because if we have 5, and it's only 3 officers, but we have 5 PEP people for 59th Street South, I would say there's a good chance Hudson River Park has almost the same number of enforcement as the entire city. And that's a little crazy to look at that comparison.
But I agree, and we could put it in letter, because we can address this to different people, so we can get the answers, but I don't want to overlook that the city's budget is poor on this. Like,
Yeah.
This is, right, Max, this is, they have to.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, there should be more, there should be more funding.
Past, right, so you got the Central Park Conservatory, right, we talked about putting together a Hell's Kitchen Conservatory or a Chelsea Conservatory where people can donate, they can do a fundraise, and then we can hire the PEP officers, as Kate was saying. We talked about it. What just surprised me was when they just said Armani's paying for the park. Well, we've got Monster, we call them Google and Facebook here, and they can definitely take over. So if that is the case, because we brought up privately, can we get a private company to pay for the swing set? We've been told, absolutely not. We cannot have any of that money, there cannot be a signage.
No, that's, no,
By
right?
Steve many times.
No, if a private company wants to pay for a swing set, they absolutely can. It just can't go through the capital process. It has to go through the expense process. But if Google wants to pay for a swing set, by all means, please have them pay for it.
And it can be distinguished to a part that we asked for. Because we've asked that question, like, why can't I go pay for the basketball hoops, which I'm tired of talking about?
You definitely can, you absolutely can, 100%. It's called adopt the park. Anyone can do it.
I have a few questions, so I think one of the problems, or a main problem is, Eddie. That, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Okay, I think one of the main problems is that a lot of the inside the park nefarious stuff goes on after 6 p.m. And if there are no peps on, if peps, all of the pep officers leave at 6 p.m. You would think that all the problems, the nighttime problems, including closing the parks, because if people are in the parks, then park staff, not your staff, but general park staff can't close up the gate, right? So that gate has to be left open overnight, which then also invites a different element of park activity in the overnight hours. It just seems the hours are a little funky with that, right?
I agree, and it's unfortunate after 6 p.m. The best that we've done is like when there's known conditions that are going on in a certain area, then we can pull from, outer boroughs and we can set up a detail. So that's my background in special operations throughout my career. And there's extended tours, we can bring in units a little earlier to address some conditions, they can address conditions later. So that's how we can amend and work with some of your concerns in your parks. But unfortunately, after our staffing hours, 6 p.m., we have to defer to NYPD.
Okay, yeah, no, I know, and I think I would think that this committee would advocate, and we have advocate for obviously another shift of PEPs. Which would be the night shift, or not the overnight, but up until, when do parks close, 9 p.m.?
Depends on the season, so, and it depends on the park too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, so closing hours of that season, at least. Or up to then. So can you, do you have the budget for your section, which is the Manhattan South section?
I do not.
You don't, okay, we can get that. And can you give me just how you guys work with NYPD?
Sure, we work very closely with NYPD. We now have an NYPD liaison who's our chief enforcement officer. He's actually a deputy inspector with the police department, and this is new, which started after Labor Day. We have he's a deputy inspector with the police department, but his title with us is chief of enforcement. So he's now full-fledged deep into the parks enforcement game, and he's our liaison directly to the precincts. But we've always worked very closely with NYPD, and they've worked closely with us. So like address any specific conditions, now NYPD also has the community link that helps different resources and city agencies come together and work together. So yeah, throughout the years, and I've been doing this for a very long time, throughout the years, we've had a very good relationship, and it's only getting better with the police department.
Tony, I'm guessing this gentleman or lady, I don't know, chief of enforcement. So how does that work? Is it a he, you said?
Yes.
So he, if there's like a real problem area that PEPs either can't take care of, whether they just don't have the force to take care of it, or they don't have the manpower to take care of it, or they can't be in 3 places at one time to take care of it, he would call that precinct that's in the area to take care of it? Is that how it would work? It's just kind of like he's like a call center or operations center as one person?
He can help us in that way. Like I said, this just started right after Labor Day, so it's only been a few months, and we're seeing him get his feet wet. It's working out nicely already with some of the meetings and communication we have with the police department. But yeah, no, we have that relationship among our captains as well, the captains and sergeants with the local precincts. Like we've worked with the 5th precinct, the 7th, the 9th, all the downtown precincts. And I think we've enjoyed a very good report. If we have a specific condition that they need to address, we can do it together. Or if it's something that is overnight and they need to specify, we even get reports back on what their activity was.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I just think, I think we all think the main issue is just staffing. Because obviously if 2 of your PEPs officers are down in Battery Park City and we have a serious problem up at McCaffrey, you know what I mean? By the time
Yes.
it's, and I'm guessing you would want that as well.
Well, any way the community board can support adding staff, please do so. Talking to the council members is a good way. We've been
Yep.
funded through the council members' offices as well. So, that's another route to help get more enforcement officers on our staff.
You know what, we actually just did, Community Board 4, just did our statement of district needs, and PEP's officers was what, Roberta, number 3? Or it was very, very high in our expense ask.
Right.
As overall, in our district overall. But I'm gonna open it up to members of the public. There are some here. If you have any questions, or if not, Brian has.
Hey, just a quick question.
Just who you.
I'm Brian Weber.
Can you hear, Eddie?
Yes, a
Okay.
little distant.
Hey, Eddie, how are you doing? I'm Brian Weber. I'm a public member on Community Board 4, and I'm actually here for a follow-up item about McCaffrey Playground. But I'm just curious, you mentioned that you have 5 officers that cover all of Manhattan South, 60th and below. How many parks are those 5 officers responsible for? Excluding Washington Square and
The private.
Hudson River, the private ones, Bella Abzug.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, I can't answer that off the top of my head. I want to be very useful and resourceful for you folks, but I couldn't tell you between Battery Park and 59th Street, how many parks we have in between.
The parks in your
I'd
district,
have
just
to
the parks in your
research that.
district.
Say that again?
Just the parks under your catchment.
What do you mean, citywide?
No, his catchment
He's
is not 60th
citywide.
and below.
No,
Oh, it's citywide, oh,
You're
okay.
talking
Yeah,
about,
Captain
oh,
wasn't
just
there.
how many?
And
No,
Eddie, I can help them answer that question.
Okay.
I'll get you the answer, but,
Okay.
yeah.
I think that would be just helpful for CB4 statement, just to point out, we only have 5 officers that are responsible for X
Yeah.
number of parks.
How many is it?
It's on the spreadsheet, I'll count them.
That's what
Thanks, Max.
You're welcome, Eddie. Yeah.
anything else,
The average salary is 60.
anyone else for Eddie or Parks? Oh, I'm sorry, hi.
I'm Carla Crowder for this time. I'm joining from the 43rd Street Block Association. I wanted to ask, and forgive me for not knowing, probably talked about this, but have you ever tried like rallying neighbors as deputies to close the park gates? Is that something you've considered or looked into?
We've seen that in a couple of areas. It's difficult for folks to get involved. I haven't seen it honestly to be effective on our end. They're civilians. These are folks that are going out dealing with their own neighbors and strangers, asking them to leave the park. That's more, they'll have the same issue as our maintenance staff trying to close the parks. I don't really personally recommend it, but we have seen it. We have explored the idea. I just haven't seen it been successful.
And Parks will have an update about McCaffrey Playground, about our closing procedures there with the NYPD, which we will tell you guys soon that the NYPD now is a key to McCaffrey.
Great.
So they're gonna help us close it.
I've
But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that.
Yeah,
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to
Yeah.
that.
Anyone else for Eddie or Peps or Parks on Peps or Peps on Peps? No? Okay. Eddie, thank you so much. We're really happy, and thank you, Max, for getting Eddie.
Leslie, sorry, somebody just put their hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, is there someone in the Zoom?
Yeah, Ryan, and I'm bringing Ryan Marcano over.
Oh, right, yeah,
So-
Ryan, come on over.
And Ryan is here.
For the McCaffrey, yeah.
Mainly for McCaffrey, but she might have a question for Peps.
Right. Hey, Ryan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Ryan,
Hi, good night, everyone. My name is Ryan Marcano, and I also represent West 43rd Street Block Association, and I have a question for Eddie. Eddie, my question to you is, seeing that you only have 5 PEP officers in a neighborhood full of parks, how do you allocate or prioritize where they're stationed? I think I may have missed that.
Yes, that's a good question, and I did kind of answer there's different ways for us to deploy our staff. I was telling folks that 311 is a good way for tracking and to get folks' attention, but it's really more community concerns, complaints, crime sprees, stuff like that is what gets us to some of these parks. And then, it's setting up that it's really like, compassionate communities like yourselves who are asking for our services. We can't be everywhere, but if you're telling me there's a condition somewhere, then we're gonna direct our staff and try to help as best we can.
Can I ask a follow-up question, or is that too much?
No, of course, go ahead.
Okay, I live relatively close to the McCaffrey Park, and I have lived experience with what happens over here, and I see the trouble that your PEP officers have with trying to close the park here. And I know that, I heard in the tail end, you said you guys have partnered with the NYPD. I would just like to make a suggestion for you. When you're sending PEP officers to close the McCaffrey Park specifically, if you can send more than 2, because the volume of people in the park and the way that they're behaving with the officers is not very becoming, and you don't want your staff to be hurt.
I appreciate your concerns with that, and thank you. Well, I also mentioned to the group that unfortunately, it's not my PEP officers that are closing the park. These are maintenance and operations. They're, again, unarmed maintenance workers around closing the playgrounds.
Just to jump in on McCaffrey, which I know is the third item, but I do have an update on that, so we can talk about when we get there.
Yeah.
Because that's a moving target, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Okay, does anyone, do you ever, any wrap up on perhaps Max that you want?
No, just appreciate Eddie coming here. Eddie, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this.
Yeah,
Well, I'm glad you had me, folks, and Max has my direct contact information. Please, have the ears and attention of park enforcement. If Max can give out my information or get in touch with me via Max, but any way I can help direct some of your main concerns, some of your specific concerns and locations, times, and perhaps we can help a little better.
Eddie, thank you so much. We definitely gonna use your number, because what we're finding up here I would say specifically at Hell's Kitchen, well, maybe not specifically, but predominantly in Hell's Kitchen, is not necessarily violent interactions in the parks, but people who shouldn't be using the parks or drug use in the parks and that type of thing. And obviously, we don't want park maintenance to be involved in that. And it's hard to get a PEP officer. So that's kind of what we have seen an influx of.
Okay, I'll be looking forward to assisting in any way we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you, everyone. Thanks again, Max.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you, Eddie.
Okay. Since we're coming off that, does anyone mind if we put the McCaffrey next, since it's kind of a good segue, and then we can do a general parks. Is that okay with parks?
Yeah, it's what we want to do.
Okay. Is that okay with parks? Okay. So why don't we just go to McCaffrey and.
Okay, and Ryan's here too.
Sure,
So I'm
Ryan,
I'll introduce.
yeah, both of you introduce yourselves and then again, and then go ahead. Brian, go ahead. You know what, why don't you stand up and take the.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna kind of sit over here with you guys. So, I'm gonna sit next to Roberta.
At the table.
I'm gonna sit next to
Like,
Roberta. I
there's
didn't
a
even know there was a seat there.
There's totally a seat here.
Sit between Roberta and Matt. I'm in good company now.
You're in trouble.
I'm in good company now. So I know many of you, but for those who don't know me, I'm Brian Weber. I'm a public member on Community Board 4. I also serve as the president of the Midtown South Precinct Community Council. And I'm here this evening with Ryan Marcano, who introduced herself as 43rd Street resident and member of the Block Association, but she's also the vice president of the Midtown South Precinct Community Council. At our monthly precinct meetings, the subject of McCaffrey Playground comes up regularly. Now, McCaffrey Playground is the only playground and park within the entirety of the Midtown South Precinct service area, precinct service area, from 29th to 45th, Lexington to 9th Avenue. So it's a very valuable resource to the community. And it has always been a challenged Place. For those of you who are not familiar with it, I don't know if everyone's familiar with McCaffrey. It's on 43rd, just east of 9th Avenue on the north side of the street. There's a singular entrance gate. It has a public restroom, a basketball court. It's sort of on a split level. You enter on the lower level. There is bleacher-like seating, a ramp up to the upper level, which houses the basketball court, and a children's play area with like park equipment for children. There's also some to the left of the entrance on the lower level. McCaffrey for years has been plagued by narcotic activity. In recent years, in partnership with the Special Narcotics Prosecutor's Office, the precinct has teamed up to do summer police athletic league play programs 4 days a week, just to get programming in that park, to get police officers there, and to hopefully get families in there. And there has been success in displacing some of the narcotic activity there. But we now find ourselves with a new set of circumstances that are compounding a number of the issues on the block. And the community has come forth at both the precinct meetings and also at the sector meetings that cover that to talk about how the park can no longer be used by families for their intended use, because it has become a de facto hub for bike delivery drivers. And also it's become sort of an overspill from the nearby Row Hotel, whereas families were using it during the summer. It's now become a bit of a hangout where people are cutting hair, they're selling food. We're getting reports of people fencing stolen items. And I think Ryan could provide a little bit more color to the situation and fill it out than I can. But I just want to, before she explains what was going on there, I want to know that since Leslie introduced me to Max and we've been in constant communication about this, there are a few updates in terms of how Parks and NYPD are working together. But I think it's important that this committee hear from, Ryan, who's a resident of that block, and also I understand there are some other residents from 43rd Street who have come because they've been really struggling with the park, the conditions at the park. So, Ryan, would you like to share? She loves it when I put her on the spot.
Absolutely. Again, good night, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Excellent. So as Brian said, and I said earlier, I'm Ryan. I represent West 43rd Street Block Association and Midtown South Police Community Precinct. And I live relatively close to the park. Now, I am not as eloquent as Brian, and I am not one to mince words at all. So I am just going to tell you what my lived experience is. And to describe McCaffrey Park and its current conditions, it's just awful and disgusting. I think Parks, what was a great conceptual idea by Parks to install the bike racks to meet whatever they felt is the neighborhood's needs at this time, has turned out to be our nightmare. Don't get me wrong, McCaffrey Park has always had its challenges, as Brian said. But Midtown South and Special Narcotics were working really, 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 really hard to clean it up. And I would today that I'm going to make this statement, and I know it's going to come and bite me in the tissue one of these days, but I would prefer to go back to a time and place when drugs was the only problem in McCaffrey Park. And I can say that openly because I live on this block. With the addition to the influx of the migrants that are housed in the neighborhood shelters and not enough PEP officers, and PEP only having, as I understand, 5 officers and trying to figure out what their priority is, McCaffrey Park is no longer a playground. It's a barbershop. It's hairdressers. It's a place to spend stolen goods. It's a place to have a club. and it is now turned into a dance hall. So I'm West Indian, so a dance hall is a nightclub. It is a nightclub. With the addition of the bike racks, the overkill of the bike racks. When I say overkill of the bike racks, we don't have 2 or 3 bike racks. We have about 5 or 6 bike racks, probably neighboring 7. With the overkill of the bike racks, it's now become a dwelling place for adults. The park was a place where people could take their kids, adults would take their kids to burn off some steam. People will have lunch, you can sit, you can have a cup of coffee. You can just, spend some time, you can use the bathroom. It is now a dwelling place for adults more than 8 hours a day. And because it's a dwelling place for adults and it's no longer a resting place, parents are not using the park. With the addition of the bike racks, the sidewalk on that side of the park, it's not passable. You cannot walk comfortably from 8th to 9th and from 9th to 8th because it is filled with bicycle, it is filled with shopping carts. Everything is chained everywhere. Parking your car on the block, parking your car at your own risk. Because when you park your car on the block, like my family does, you can come back, you can meet your car with scratches, dings, people. It's a disgusting place. Again, I'm sure Parks had a great idea with the concepts of the bike rack, but it is a nightmare for us. Removing a bench from a park where people use to kind of, sit and leaving that space empty is just, in my opinion, inviting the wrong crowd. So I'm going to say something that may not be great to say, but I'm going to say it in public anyway. The delivery-sters are of African descent, and the migrants are of Hispanic descent. And the park, the playground, is now racially divided. It is very intense in there. So we have drug dealing still going on. We have a racially divided space that is not, and it's not safe as residents or people just walking by to walk by because you feel as though you're in a seedy alley and you're going to get mugged. Now I'm a tough broad, right? I'm not the type to run away or to feel as though, I don't want to pass this place or I'm discriminating because these set of people are here. I don't want to walk near to the park because I think they're going to snatch my bag with $5 in it. We're asking for Parks to do something. And I think the ask as a community resident, as a resident on the block, is we're asking for you to remove those bike racks. Because with the bike racks, again, great intention, it didn't turn out so well. I'm sure Parks is coming by and feeling, well, I come by at 2 o'clock or I come by at 11 o'clock and it's not so bad. It's a place where adults could be. Yes, it's a place where adults can be, but when they start to dwell, it deters others from using the park. The residents on the block, the people who pass by are scared to walk on the sidewalk because of what's happening and we need your help. I'm not going to say anymore.
Actually, Ryan, I have a question. It might not have been you, but one of the reasons why this is on the agenda, it might have been you, or was it Brian? Was there an incident at this park? Maybe, like I said, someone else told me that there was a fight and that they locked the park.
Yes, that was me. That was me. I was walking home with my daughter. That was me. I was walking home with my daughter. It was about 5 o'clock, about 3 weeks ago, and we were walking home. And there was a fight in the park, and the people who were going to fight closed the park. So whoever was in the park, you were either in the park, in the fight, or you run out the park. They closed the gates, and there was about to be an all-out brawl at the park. I did stop to watch a little, but then it got too much, and I kept moving.
So I just want to give an update. So this issue's come up with Precinct Council. And I spoke to Leslie about it. Leslie brought Max into the conversation. Max and I have been coordinating between Parks and the precinct. I spoke to the commanding officer this afternoon before coming to this meeting. Parks has given the precinct a key. And I think as of earlier this week, the precinct is now taking ownership of locking the park in the evening. As we've heard, park maintenance crew, and as we heard from Parks, is that their maintenance crew did not feel comfortable clearing McCaffrey Park of delivery drivers, of other activities that were going on there. And so they were leaving the park open at night, it just wasn't safe for them. So what's happening is, because of the severity of conditions, the precinct will be locking it at night. The other thing is for the immediate time being, until we can kind of quell some tensions within the park. The commanding officer has committed 2 officers to be with the park and on that corner, from 11 AM to 7 PM when they're locking the park. I don't know how long-term that is, but it's the severity of conditions there has necessitated that they engage on that
So
level.
2 officers there all day?
Yeah, yeah. What, one other thing to note is that the park is used by both the Sal Academy, the school on 43rd Street, and also nearby Success Academy for recess during the day. So in order for them to use the park during recess, they have been coordinating with the precinct with the youth officers to be present while the school, is using it for recess. The problem was that after recess was over and youth officers left, a lot of the issues that Ryan's describing really kind of erupt within the park. And what Ryan was talking about with respect to bike racks, that was a well-intentioned response to hearing people saying the park is overrun as a delivery driver hub and they're locking their bikes to the gates of the park. So what happened was that Parks, in trying to help address it, said, what if we added bike racks there? So what we now have is a situation where they still lock their bikes to the gate and they also lock their bikes to bike racks. So I was there last week before the precinct had the keys to the park, and I walked there after Ward 4's meeting, it was last Monday. I was there around 7:30 at night, just after sundown. And it was a bad situation. There were people shouting, screaming, there were verbal altercations, and it was really dark, and there were bikes everywhere. I went back last night and the gates were locked. Big improvement, except where all the bike racks are, right outside the entrance to the park, is now become a delivery driver hub. And it wasn't as bad as it was when the park was open, but now we have a whole bunch of delivery drivers there. The other thing,
And I just wanna make a point, which I think is interesting. The bike rack, guys, is on the sidewalk.
yeah, it's on the
The
side.
bike rack is on the sidewalk. So that is that's extremely unusual in this day and age to put a bike rack on a sidewalk. We usually see them, but anyway,
So-
I think it's a
right.
distinction.
The other thing
About
to
the
note
space.
with the bike racks is that they're staggered next alongside each other, and what will happen is you'll have bikes racked to bike rack, and then bikes locked to bikes. And instead of having a gap between the bike racks, you have a wall of bikes. And then coupled with that, you also have shopping carts that get locked there. So it's really become an unappealing entrance to the park. And then just an aside, to throw this into the mix, there was a wall of trash bags outside of the park last night. And you could literally see vermin running back and forth from the park to the trash bags and back and forth. They were very busy. So add that into the mix. So there's a lot of things to solve.
Yeah.
All this to say is McCaffrey needs assistance and attention, and there's only so much that as an agency is under the purview of NYPD.
So let's
to do
talk
that.
to Max. I did, before
Yeah.
Max, we go to you, so I went myself to take pictures and just to see, and it was during the day. And it was quite calm actually when I went. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and I was looking at the pictures, but there was a group of, I would say, 6 men in their 20s or 30s, and they were up on the top where like the concrete table is. And I was taking pictures and they were yelling at me that they thought I was taking pictures of them, which I kind of was, but not really. And they were yelling at me and they started threatening me, and I didn't realize, but they had all drug paraphernalia on it. So I do have a picture. I just caught it like just. So that's why they're like, you shouldn't take pictures, people, and I was like, I'm taking pictures of the park. And then when I took a look, that's why I think they got, so, and I called Max right away. I'm like, hey, Max, FYI. So, like I said, they weren't bothering me or anyone until, but they were just doing this activity that obviously, and it's a playground, you know, it's not just a regular park, it's a playground, which I think is another little distinction that was kind of catching me, but anyway, since we have Parks here and then we have Max, go
Well,
ahead.
you also have Paul,
And Paul.
your manager, who's been excellent throughout this entire process.
Paul, don't hide back there, we see you.
So, so before you begin, Paul, let me just
Yeah.
say, my name is Max Christine, I work for the Parks Department, obviously. I'm a resident of Hell's Kitchen, I'm also a member of Committee Board 4, I'm not representing Committee Board 4 tonight, I'm representing the Parks Department. I'm a New York State landscape architect, I'm an arborist, I'm a New York State certified EMT, I work at EMS, I work in the 911 system in New York City for a very long time. I recently now work in the 911 system in Westchester, so I've seen a lot of these conditions in our parks, and also on my second job working at EMS. I've talked to a lot of users of drugs, I have some good experience talking to them, I know about that issue. I became a Parks employee, actually for this very reason, because I believe in democracy at parks. And I think New York City park space is really, really special. And it's the last democratic space we have in the city, right? Everything else is commercialized. And I truly believe in the mission of the Parks Department, which is why I love working here so much. I was a landscape architect before this in the private sector, and I designed very different privileged spaces. It is an honor to work in the city and design these spaces and event for all. And that's what I like about working here. Our parks users, we can't pick and choose them. It's anyone that wants to use our parks can use our parks. We don't say this group can use it, this group can't use it. I know the McCaffrey playground says playground in the name, it's a little confusing, and I totally understand the confusion. Just because it's a playground does not mean that adults are not allowed in it, especially when it has a bathroom. Everyone in the city needs a bathroom, they need clean drinking water, they need a place to eat their lunch. Just to be completely clear, these deliveristas are 100% allowed to use these parks. We are not gonna kick them out because of deliveristas, because how they look or what they do, it does not matter, they're allowed to use the park. They cannot be breaking our rules, just like everyone else. So you see them smoking, you see them breaking your rules, they cannot do that, and you must call Pep or call me and we'll send someone over to fix that. But just to be clear on that issue, they are allowed to use McCaffrey, and we're not gonna kick them out anytime soon. Where that changes though, so in the city charter, we call something called play areas, and that's what a playground is, it's a play area. It's where you have like safety surface and like the play equipment. That's where adults cannot be without kids, and that's in the city charter. So some of our newer playgrounds, we designed this with this thing in mind. We actually fence off that play area from the rest of the playground. You see that in Matthews Palmer Playground, for example, which is the newer one of our parks. That fence actually wraps around the entire play area, it's just meant for kids. Adults are not allowed in. That's a visual barrier, and it's also a physical barrier that they cannot be in there. Recently in McCaffrey, we had our blacksmiths, which by the way, New York City Parks is an agency of tradespeople. We have blacksmiths, we have electricians, we have tinsmiths, we have every imaginable trade employed from us. Working in our shops in the oldest building in Central Park. And they made a fence at McCaffrey Playground that actually fence off the top portion of that playground. So just to visually and also physically separate that space from the rest of the park. So at least recently, if Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, or anyone, please correct me if I'm wrong. Since we've installed that fence, I think the issue of single adults in that upper playground has been drastically reduced. And our
Wrong,
blacksmith just did that.
wrong,
Wrong.
Yeah.
wrong.
Let me just interject. What I will say is, I think it has improved and it has changed.
Yeah.
The big difference, the most important thing that the fence does really, it gives us now a space that is enforceable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The issue with McCaffrey is it's a playground, it's a park space that is actually, there's several cascades of problems. Number one, it's just over its user capacity. There's too many folks of all stripe in there. That's the first problem. The other problem is, I think there's a cultural disconnect. If you have so many people who are immigrants, they don't understand what New Yorkers think their parks are for. And, you know, in the home country, maybe you just go and you hang out in the park or whatever, or you come here and you do whatever. We don't do that here. And so we're working on a way of communicating, you know, what the rules are. We are working on the text. I don't know what the status is right now, but in 3 languages, in Spanish, in French, because we have the baristas who are African and speak French, and also in English, so that everybody is very, very clear about what the rules are, so that they know what's to be expected. And also we're doing the enforcement.
And to the person who just saw us wrong, please email me or text me or something so I have that data.
Ryan, it was Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan, please text me or email me whenever you see adults in there, so we have that data to back up, because we're always looking at what our actions were and our interventions and going back on that, like the bike rack, for example. Maybe that was the wrong thing to do. I don't know yet, and I don't think the Parks Board knows yet. But we're hearing it from you right now, that's really valuable to us, because to us, we installed that to reduce the chaos that was happening at that park. We didn't put the bike racks there because, we want to attract them, we put the bike racks there because there were tons of bikes there. And that's the user of the park, and to us, bikes are bikes, just like people are people. For real, I mean, that's what we consider it as, if there's bikes by the park, that's the user group of that park, and the bikes are there, we have to organize that chaos. Right now, or back then, they were chained to the fence, 3 or 4 deep, and it was impeding the circulation on the sidewalk. And to be clear, the sidewalk is New York City Parks jurisdiction, up until the street, that is all New York City Parks property, we have every right to put a bike rack on that. And we put the bike rack in between the tree pits, so it should not be in the center of the sidewalk. Now the bike should be in between the tree pits, you still have a path of
Right,
circulation
but
right by it.
that's, I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
gonna stop you there.
Yeah.
When I took pictures and I did, I think, it expands though.
Okay,
I-
that's good to
It's
know.
like a grown bush.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
It's like a grown bush.
It would be great if it stayed there, everything was neat and orderly, but I mean, when I took it, there were like shopping carts chained at the shop, you couldn't even get.
And that's
through it.
good to know.
Let me just say this, and I appreciate that, and part of that is because we know the deliveries is chain bikes to bikes to bikes, and they're not supposed to do that, but we know that they do that. Last week, you mentioned the shopping carts, they have pictures on my phone somewhere, we did do a clean out, I have a contact to the deliveries to community, and I told them, we're gonna do a cleanup. All the bikes that are on the fence are being cut off, we had Pep with us, we took the bikes, we took the shopping carts, and they were cleaned out. And that's also a way of teaching, this is the culture of New York City, you don't change.
So, I understand, so I'm gonna make a request right now, though, we can have a discussion. This board, and there's much precedent of letters, this board for many years has not welcomed bike racks on the sidewalk. Like just pedestrian space, even though I understand it's in between the tree pits, but we've always advocated for them to be either, in a, or whatever, in the side. Is there a way we can get, now that we see that it's not helping the problem, that it's kind of blossoming the problem, is there a way we can readdress that?
So from a design perspective, we don't typically walk bike racks inside the park either, because that occurs to bring inside the park.
No, I didn't say.
So- At Matthews Palmer, for example, Matthews Palmer has bike racks at either side of the park, on both sides of the park, and we don't have this issue there. Bike racks don't create this issue is something much larger than parks.
Absolutely.
So-
Right, it's the specific part.
But here's the thing that I'd just like to point out to parks.
Sure.
What our experience is that if you install something, and I'll use something totally different, the Lynx kiosks.
Yeah.
Which everyone like, great idea, and everyone who has a Lynx kiosk on their corner is begging the city to remove it. Unfortunately, the idea that the bike racks are being used by people who are kids riding their bikes to the park or someone who's delivering food and then leaving. What's happened now is that, and this is something that goes beyond parks, is that a lot of people will lock their bikes there and leave them overnight, and leave them for extended periods of time. Because a lot of the delivery drivers that work in the area don't live in the area, so they will leave their bikes overnight here, go home and come back the next day. There are also third-party apps that are using bike racks around the city, not just here, and locking them for rental during the day. So adding them there is unfortunately, while it seems like a solution to they're locked to their gate, it's now created another condition which residents are dealing with.
I do get what you're saying, the induced demand, and DOT experiences all the time with having a traffic thing on a bridge or whatever. But we did have a bike rack before we put these bike racks there as well, and that bike rack was actually placed pretty poorly in the sidewalk. That's to the left of the gate, and it's actually in the path of travel. So totally get what you're saying, these bike racks are bolted into the sidewalk, they can be removed, they're not permanent, right, they could always be removed, so if the community does go strongly, these are not working, and we see that they're not working.
And
That would be great.
I'm gonna go, Roberta and then Brett.
I guess to what degree do you coordinate with, I'm assuming it's transportation, but other city agencies on the placement of racks? And the reason I ask this is, getting rid of racks do not erase the bikes, the people who live here, the people who deliver them here. So I assume, let's say the community decides this isn't working. I do assume those bikes do get displaced somewhere, likely not terribly far, which
may be preferable to members of the community, may not be preferable to members of the community, but to what extent are you engaging with other agencies as to figure out how to place these?
So anything that's not by a park, we don't really have much to do with. So, you know, I know this issue because I live in the neighborhood too. I live on 39th and 9th, and I've walked by the bike issues on 9th Avenue and 43rd Street. And all the bikes there were there for the longest time. And there's still a little bit of bikes there, but now a lot of them moved on the 43rd Street itself, next to McCaffrey. So I have seen that firsthand. We don't coordinate with DOT at all outside of our parks, unless it was for like tree pits or something else like that, or it's a larger city agenda item, like deliveristas or like deliverista hubs, like which we have downtown at City Hall Park. But the sidewalk is our property, and our property extends out to the curb line. We're responsible for fixing that sidewalk. We can also put a bike rack on it, and like I said, the path of travel is not interrupted because it's in between the tree pits.
We have Brad, and then I see Ryan's hand is up again, but Brad. go ahead.
Oh, no, I assume we're writing a letter.
Yeah,
We're gonna ask for these bikes to be removed.
yeah, well, we can talk about it after, like, we have two.
And then I think for Paul, it's great to hear that you did some enforcement and let them know, and then you remove the bikes, right? Because when you get told, you stop doing it or you move on. But if this does get moved and then they're gonna start going to the fence, is it a weekly thing where you're gonna start cutting them? Well, is it, you know, we heard, Peds here earlier. It sounds like they need to be there permanently right now, you know, I mean, all day, all along with the police.
I'm sorry, when you say that, what do you mean?
Meaning, if we request to get the bike racks removed, is it your intention to do a weekly clean out off the, not tying them to the fence?
If I see them, you know, accumulating again, we're gonna do another clean out. First of all, this happens wherever there are bike racks, wherever there are
Yeah.
fences near park facilities, there are always bikes that accumulate, always. It's really horrible at McCaffrey. So I think the bike racks I think they're being very, very successful because they let us control where the bikes are gonna be. I've told, the guys see me, they run, they know I got the badge, they know that, and I'm very direct, you know. You can't do this, so I tell them, and I make them take it off, right while I'm there, take it off, right now, it's gotta go. And I tell them I have a hacksaw, which I don't, but I wanna get one, but that's the whole point, we went through and we cleaned it out, so they understand. I happen to think that for the people who are well-intentioned and just in the park because they're waiting for the next call and they don't wanna cause a problem, we're going to have we're gonna make a lot of progress with them by communicating with them. We haven't done the formal outreach where we actually post the rules in the multiple languages in the bulletin board, which I'm glad McCaffrey's one of the few places that still has a bulletin board. We're gonna post it there. I think it's gonna be very, very helpful. The other issue, which really is a police enforcement issue, is the other behavior, the drug.
See, that is a bigger picture, I think,
That's-
too, what we have to address.
So that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
it's a multi-layered problem. And I don't want the deliveristas who kind of are a little bit maybe even clueless, you might say, well, what's going on, being blamed for the really, you know, the more nefarious behavior that's going on.
I understand what you're saying, and I think if you recall, I prefaced this by saying that we've always had narcotic issues, and now we have these additional issues. And I think it's just imperative, though, that you listen to community concerns. And we're not trying to stigmatize delivery drivers.
And I don't think, Paul, anyone
And,
even said that.
I don't think that's even the case. I don't think they're saying, we don't want delivery drivers here. But what I am saying is that, as you heard from Ryan, and this is the case, the residents that live on my street feel very differently about those bike racks. So when you say that you think the bike racks have been very successful, I think the feedback that we hear, at least at the precinct council, and I think there's some other residents here that might want to speak about that, they're experiencing it differently than what you're experiencing. And the other thing is to, you know, I think that most of the delivery guys are just there because that's where other delivery guys are. And that is a constantly changing pool of individuals. It's not the same people that are going to be there. So if you speak to a group on one day, it's going to be a different group the next day. And so that's an issue. In the interim, we will have officers there to try to help with that.
Absolutely.
But I think maybe, you know, perhaps we can talk offline and communicate.
I wanna
with-
let,
Yeah.
I wanna let Ryan have her hand up. Ryan, go
Yeah.
ahead.
What I wanted to say is that, if we or someone can prioritize enforcement, I think after a while people will get it. Because Parks built an enclosure so kids can play freely and safely. However, there's no one in there, there's no one in the park to enforce that single adults should not be there. Because case in point, the Samaritan house on the block put out some exercise equipment for free for anyone to take, and that exercise equipment ended up in the park, in the area where kids should be alone, and adults was using it. Adults are often sitting there, smoking, doing illegal activities, and sometimes the way that they play the system is there would be one child and 4 adults sitting around because there's not a park bench on the other side anymore. That's some of the only places with benches. They all congregate there. There's no one to enforce the rules. The rules are fine. Putting the segregation is fine. Putting up the bike racks is not fine. But if there's no one to enforce it, it's always going to be haywire.
And also, I just wanna, and I know, Matt, you had your hand up, right? I just wanna, just as a perspective, you guys, just to know, and Ryan's a mom, and I'm a mom, and it is very difficult. I mean, my kid's 11 now, so we don't go to playgrounds as much as we used to, but is very difficult for us to find safe spaces that the kids can run around in playgrounds, right? Because adults can go anywhere. Like adults can go to a park or just like a spot like Manhattan Plaza, they can go and sit and hang out. We have hardly any playgrounds, like not a lot, right? So when you say everyone is welcome in the park, of course everyone is welcome in the park. But then if that park is taken over, right, then others are displaced, right? And when children are displaced or parents are displaced, where do they go? Then just where are our options? And that's all. It's not saying that these people should have it over these people, or it's not like a fight necessarily like that. It's more like, so where do we go when, it's taken over?
Yeah, I wanna just take a little risk here. I have responded to 311 complaints and commissioners' correspondence. And people are saying, I don't want them here. So it's a very, it's a very, very sensitive issue.
Yeah, but I mean, when they're fighting or people are yelling,
No, they didn't say I saw a fight, I don't want them here. There's some real hatred out there. So I'm just letting you know.
Right,
Okay.
that's not what's here tonight.
that's not,
No,
yeah,
I
we're
understand.
talking about the neighborhood.
I understand.
Let Matt go, because I know Matt had his hand.
So my question is so I think there's some short-term things, to work on, whether it's enforcement, bike racks. But in the long term, sounds like, this park needs like some attention and redesigns. I understand that there's some capital funding that's gone into this park. Can you just briefly talk, is this fully funded? Is there a timeline when this park's gonna be renovated? Because if you're talking about displacement, it's gonna be out of commission for 2 years. Where are people gonna go then? Which is great that the renovation is gonna happen, but I'm just curious.
Is it gonna happen?
The
You know,
status.
we don't know.
No, I don't know. I know that there's been money put into the park, and I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
it
It
was
seems like
done.
an opportunity to really redesign. Ryan mentioned that there used to be benches where there weren't any before, and so there were, benches have been removed, so.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And Roberta, we talked about this, remember David District needs, and
Yes,
I said it's probably gonna be on the top, but we didn't.
The park needs a redesign. It's of an old style design. It's an old design thought of how this was designed. It started from one entrance. It's multi-level. It's not how we were designing playground today, to be completely blunt. There is no funding right now. There is that little portion of funding that Councilmember Blanchard put into the park, which I'm not really sure exactly what's gonna happen with that. You have to talk to him about that. That was originally for the adult fitness. It's not for the adult fitness anymore, but it's still money that's in the budget.
How much was that?
It was
350, yeah.
Yeah, so we did a capital needs assessment a few years ago to reconstruct the park without the bathroom. That was about $5 million 2 years ago. But the bathroom also needs to be reconstructed too. So the capital needs assessment is really covered around $10 million for this park. But with the bathroom, to completely reconstruct it, build a new entrance, there's a topography change as you go up 43rd Street, which is why there's only one entrance. Ideally, there's more than one entrance to this park. And there's a much bigger play area that's just for kids, which we absolutely do under your designs and parks.
Yeah.
Right now, there's no funding to completely redo the park, however, we hope that's gonna change, this is very high on our priorities too. We're talking to other city agencies to see if we get funding in terms of the Midtown South rezoning or some other source of funding, but we won't know the answer until next year. And that's with DCP.
I'm gonna go to Roberta, then if there's no other, we'll go to the members of the public.
Forgive me for the sort of, outside the lines thought here, but I think Brian mentioned, private, like, bike rental companies. And I think we've had the discussion of, working with app-based delivery platforms to invest in, the infrastructure that they ultimately, tax very greatly. Has there been a discussion of how either of those things could potentially be leveraged for improvement, if not specifically for this space? It's clear that the neighborhood overall has a problem with figuring out how to store bikes and to allow delivery workers a respite. And obviously that's completely different from people doing illegal activity, but I am curious if that's something that's ever been discussed.
Yeah, I mean, parks is the place you kind of see a lot of this activity that other places don't want at their own facility, right? Park businesses might not want something, they might not use their bathrooms, they might not want them sitting down, so they come to parks as mostly a last resort or their only option. Maybe there's, I'm not speaking as a parks portable, but maybe there should be, a separate area that delivery apps can rent for their employees, but I don't know, it's out of my purview, it's not parks' purview.
Yeah, that's an idea.
But,
Well, they've discussed,
yeah.
they've discussed taking them over and
But-
empty storefronts.
But from Parks' perspective, they use our parks, we have bathrooms, we have benches, we have clean drinking water, there's amenities there that they can use.
And so I think what Roberta's talking about is how, third-party apps are, I guess for lack of a better term, abusing the resources of communities like ours and public spaces, where they should be providing for their, employees.
Well, not to get too
Yeah,
far,
so that's a
far
good
off base, but Katie, Sally and myself were actually, this was almost a year ago. Met with a bunch of people and the electeds with the, delivery apps, a bunch of them, Grubhub, they were all there. And it was kind of more, there was a lot of issues about speed and, going outside, but there was spaces, where do you put these people? And that, where is the accountability for the apps for their drivers, and they really wash their hands about that.
Right.
We're not responsible, we don't wanna rent anything, so Brad, we brought it up to them saying, open to, but anyway, I didn't wanna get too far off base, but that is something that we have been really advocating, not really, but advocating, at least brought up for a while.
We should circle back to it. I mean, I haven't heard any discussions about it later, but yes, as Brad said, it. I mean.
There's some car
there
dealerships on
are
the west side that are.
answers. There are answers to the problem.
Need to
We
be
need the political will to do it.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah,
it's
we're-
not that park. We have the empty storefront. We talked about it as residents.
They also wanna pay
Well,
for
why
it, it's a money thing.
Huh?
Yeah, but, can we go to the public now? I know, sorry, Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, we have Ariana on. I'm gonna
Hold
transfer
on,
over.
I'm sorry, Jean Marty, and then there's some people here in the room.
Okay, sorry, got it.
Sorry.
I'm hearing an abuse of overuse and an abuse of the park being used in illegal ways. The overuse is not what I want to talk about. I want to hear from the two of you what the program is for. And you said that they're gonna be two cops there now for whatever period of time. You've gotta be vague because you don't know. What is the program for enforcing the no smoking rule? Enforcing the kids have to have a parent or an adult has to have a kid to be in the areas. The general enforcement over the period of for this park. It sounds like this park is gone wild. And enforcement would help it a lot, I think.
Right, well, I mean, I think you heard what the limitations of the enforcement are. What I will tell you is I did have a very candid conversation with Lieutenant Jeff Smith from Midtown South. And very, very, and relying on their support for those particular issues. I mean, I put it, one of the big problems we have in free space is having enforceability of rules. So the signage is up. The signage is up, anybody that has an infraction is going to have the consequences of law enforcement on them. I think the real issue that we have is the resource of law enforcement. I'm not law enforcement, but they're in the loop.
But you do cut bikes.
Yeah, with PEP officers, and we had to schedule that. We had to notify the public that stuff left, even though, you know, people, there were signs that say nothing should be attached to park fixtures. We had to notify the public we were going to do it, and then we came and we cut off what was left overnight.
Sounds like we need a regular schedule of that.
That's what I was saying.
And we will, and if they continue to accumulate, we will continue to do that. But that is not a problem that is unique to this particular location.
Well, we start tracking how many we remove from the vets. Is that possible?
I didn't count them, but I will find out if, well, you know, my understanding is that PEP vouchers them. So I guess there's a record of them that way.
Maybe we could start tracking that.
I will.
And so.
But she shouldn't be able to take photographs of drug equipment.
Oh, daily. Daily. That's
I
like.
mean,
not
if that's a daily issue, then there should, I know you're not a cop, I get it, but I think a lot of the problem that I'm hearing is solved by enforcement. You're not gonna solve the overcrowding.
So, yeah, I mean, so that's the thing though, it's like. We're now, when I say we, it's the precinct, I'm not in charge of how they're deployed or whatever. But, you know, I know you've spoken with Lieutenant Smith, who's excellent, he's one of the XOs at the precinct, head of public safety. And I've been speaking with the commanding officer, Aaron Edwards, and the things are rising to a head in the park, and they wanna stem that before we get there. So I know Parks has been working with the precinct to figure out how they can address it, and for the time being, they're just gonna have 2 offers there from 11 AM until they close it down at night at 7.
Did that start already?
It just started this week.
I
Yeah.
don't see you taking down bike racks is gonna solve anything. I see you getting enforced as beginning to solve.
So the narcotics issues, just to be clear, are separate from the delivery guys, and they're separate from other, that's been like this ongoing thing that there's been a lot of work done over prior to this. It is chronic and ongoing. The hope is that the presence of the officers there monitoring the park will help displace that activity within the park and disrupt it on the street. But the challenge, of course, is everything else on top of it. And I think that it's been very helpful that Parks is putting up signage, as silly as it sounds. When there's signage up there, an officer is able to say, you can't do that here, or you can't be in this area, rather than asking an officer to say, we don't like how someone looks and move them away. You can say, hey, you need to be with a child in this section. And so that really helps. So it's a start, you know, I think there's other
And then the
intervention
signs
that's
are up
needed
now?
here. I don't know, the signs, do they still up? Yeah.
But other intervention isn't gonna reduce the amount of people that live in that park.
Yeah.
Enforcement may reduce the unwanted activities that are in that park.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go, I just wanna kind of close this up, because we're gonna talk about it for a letter, so I think we mostly
I
talked
want to
about.
say this in front of Parks people.
Yeah, David, and then we can go around, go ahead.
Yeah.
And just say who you are.
Yeah, I'm David Stewart, I'm the president of the 44th and 45th Street Block, 45th and 6th Street Block Association. So I'm just gonna talk really bluntly, and I'm gonna talk this way because, the purpose is to solve problems, right? So I think when I hear folks say that parks own the sidewalk, I totally understand that. But folks like Ryan, folks like live in the community, I think we also own the sidewalks, and I think we also own the parks. And one of the things that I've been trying to do with Parks Department for years is to try to establish a community Parks Department collaboration so that when we decide we want to do something, right, that we don't have unintended consequences. I think the people who live on the streets, who are active in the neighborhood, folks like the folks here, like Brian up on the screen, they could probably tell you, hey, if we're gonna do this, we have this idea to do this, you talk to the community who are involved, and they could say like, here's the problem I see with it, because I live on that street and I'm on the ground. And I think that so many of the problems that we're experiencing with parks, and I'm not singling you guys out, right? There's problems in a lot of city agencies. What we see is that none of the city agencies are really working with the community. And if somebody wants to disagree with me, I'll give you 1,000 examples. And it's not just that, it's that the city agencies often vilify the community. And I don't understand that. So like what I see at McCaffrey, I'm just 2 doors down, but what I see at McCaffrey is, yeah, place is a nightmare. But the thing is, like, you don't have to go in and solve it in one fell swoop, right? The way that big problems are solved, they're solved in incremental steps. So if you got rid of the bike, I'm just throwing the shit out for whatever. If you got rid of the bike racks, if you got rid of the bikes, and if you're there every week, not when the bikes accumulate, but if you show up every week with pep, if you make a schedule, and if there's a bike there and it's chained up, you cut it, it sends a message and suddenly the bikes are gone. I'm just saying best case scenario. But what that starts to do is it starts to send a message to all the other activities that these things are no longer gonna be acceptable. Because right now, places like McCaffrey, it's an open door. People see drugs, they see the bikes, they see the shopping carts, the hair cutting. I mean, in Matthews Palmer, we have people getting tattoos on the ping pong tables. So it's not just McCaffrey, and there's drug dealing in Matthews Palmer and a whole bunch of stuff, right? So what we can do is if we start solving these problems incrementally with the community, I think there is this massive resource that is going to waste. And it's the resource of ideas and collaboration and manpower and person power, and then problem solving and executing. And what I'm not hearing is consistency. Going there and cutting bikes off once, like Brian was saying, maybe it sends a message to the 15 or 20 people who have their bikes there. It doesn't send a message to anybody else because it's inconsistent and they know in 2 weeks, they're all gonna be back. So what I would suggest, and I'm gonna go to the meeting with the Commissioner of Parks in a couple of weeks, wherever next week, wherever that is, and she's gonna hear from me. But what I would suggest is that Parks Department has some kind of system where like folks like me who have tried over and over and over again for years to establish this collaboration, let's set it up. Because the community can't kick people out of the park, we can't do things like that, but you would be amazed what 10 or 15 people, along with some police officers, along with PEP and along with the Parks Department, the changes that could occur. So just kind of wanted to say that. And I am available. If somebody actually wants to reach out and actually wants to have that collaboration with Matthews Palmer as the park that I am caring for. But I also, our block association would also love to help with McCaffrey, because that's what absolutely is like, because we don't want that problem to just be dispersed elsewhere. Like, to solve the problem, we have to solve the problem, not just close it up there and send them over to Matthews Palmer or Hell's Kitchen Park or wherever.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, I know.
Yeah,
Just
hi.
who you are.
Yeah, I'm Carla Pratico. I live on 43rd Street, right across from the park. I have lived there for 4 years, and, you know, I can appreciate that you made the effort to cut the bikes off. I think that is a really important effort that you took to do that, because that is a big deal, blocking that sidewalk. I picked my children up from the daycare around the street. We love the coffee shop on the corner. That is a treacherous journey for us to go over there. So I can appreciate the start of trying to enforce those rules because this feels like a fairly new-ish problem, like within the last 8 months, it's gotten really out of hand. I'm sure it was slowly getting worse, so I can appreciate that it takes time to sort out what's the right answer, and bike racks seemed like a logical option. I think the attraction to that space is the amenities, no doubt about it, the bathroom, because I know that the delivery people are not allowed to use restaurant bathrooms. And they need a humane place to do their life and their work, and that's a fair thing to say they are welcome in that space. I loved your point about it's a very unique space because it has 2 playgrounds. And actually only one of the playgrounds got a fence. So the little kid playground, that's for 5 and under, they don't have a protected space, so that playground is fully useless to families. I have come across that where there are people coming like absolutely high on heroin, sitting on top of where the slide is, right? So we are not going to play there today. I've been in the protected spot where, you know, I see a young woman who is smoking pot right next to the slide and my daughter has asthma. I asked her, hey, any chance you might be able to move out there? I'm almost done. 10 minutes later, she's not done. So, you know, and I took a risk asking her to leave. It wasn't particularly maybe a great idea, but at the same time, I think I did know there was officers nearby, but nonetheless, it is certainly a daily drug situation. She's found syringes, I have found glass, trash galore. I mean, it is not the park that I moved into when I moved 4 years ago.
So that's, I think what you're hearing, I think there are a few people online to me, there are a lot of layers. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was just gonna say that one of the bikes aren't the problem. It's really the overflow that is creating so much chaos that doing drugs there feels easy. There's so much going on, you wouldn't notice
Right.
someone, right? So it is the overflow that's contributing. This is my perspective. I walk by there at least twice a day. And so it's the overflow that's blocking the entrance. And it's not that it's grown men, lots of them. And as a woman with two small children, 2 under 3, it's not easy for me to get around the city, first of all, but then when you have a horde of men, it's even more just, what do I do with this, you know? And I know that there's been somebody got stabbed in the head, like crazy stuff is happening. So, I realize that's all an enforcement issue. The problem, I think, is only going to be solved if we can have a delivery hub. They deserve a space like that. They deserve somewhere to rest. They deserve somewhere to have a bathroom. This park is not made for that, right? It's made for people to come with their families and play. There's a big water fountain in the middle for kids to run through. Like, it is very much designed for children. And there are picnic tables and basketball courts. And to your point with the fence, I was hoping for so long that we could get a fence, and I love that that was added. The downside I have seen of that is we do need a sign to shut the gate, because if you have a toddler, they will run right out, and it's supposed to be a place they can run free. But people don't maybe know that that's something they should do.
We'll definitely do that.
And even, yeah, so then the other thing is, I guess just that, how do we, oh, sorry, I remembered what I was gonna say. The children who come from the school down the street to play, they are now only allowed in that small area, so their playground got cut to a third, which is fairly upsetting to see them running, like, they barely can run. There's gotta be at least 50 of them shoved in that little space.
Success Academy?
Whatever school comes in uniform.
We saw success use it.
Yeah,
That's why we put 2 gates and we hope that wouldn't happen, but you see that happening, you see them pinned in?
I see them pinned into that small space, so it's cut off their like running room, there's really no. Like they could run down that ramp and all around, and I don't know if their teachers are making them stand there, cause that's where they're
That's
kind
what
of
they're
allowed to
probably
be,
doing,
and
yeah,
it's safe.
that's what they're doing, yeah.
But they
Probably, but
they've
it's an
lost-
illustration of
Yes,
the
it was
reuse of
like,
the park.
yeah. And I appreciate the fence, that's the double-edged sword here, it's like, I wanted that for a long time, but now I'm seeing the downfall is. My kid's gonna go to that school and now they won't have somewhere to run, you know, so. Anyhow, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Too. Janine, do we have people online who want to ask Parks questions or questions of the board?
Yeah, Ariana, I'm gonna bring her over.
Sure. So guys, we will, like we do with pets, when we're done with the parks updates, we'll talk about the letters and what we wanna, if we're gonna do letters, we wanna include, we wanna address them too. Ariana, can you hear me?
Hi, yes. My name is Ariana. I'm also a resident of 43rd Street. I've lived here for about 5 years, and this is actually the first time I'm joining a meeting like this. And the issue of McCaffrey Park is something that it's kind of like never participated in anything related to the community, and it's that bad that I was like, I need to figure out who the groups are that are tackling this. I hope that it is somebody, but I want to provide an additional perspective. I appreciated hearing from Ryan, the woman who spoke before me as well. I agree with many, and I've seen many of the same issues that they have noted. I think that our block has been plagued with issues extending beyond the park even. There was scaffolding up the block closer to 8th for more than a year, and that area itself became a hub for drug usage. And so while the scaffolding came down, I think a lot of that usage has migrated towards the park. So I would walk to work and I would cross over to the side of the park because I didn't want to go near the scaffolding. Now I'm kind of doing the reverse where I'm not comfortable walking where the park is. So I cross over. Issues that others have noted, I mean, usage of drugs, paraphernalia on the ground. You can't walk on the sidewalk because people are riding their bike on the sidewalk in addition to parking their bike. But something that I haven't really heard as much of it, Ryan did mention, is violence. I myself and my partner have had to individually call 911. I can see the park from my window, so I can see very clearly. I can read the signs on the park on the fences. I came home from work Friday at 5 p.m. and heard screaming. I went to my window. There were 2 men fighting with knives. I live that close that I can see that's what was happening. I called 911, and again, coming back to the issues of enforcement, I called 911. I was able to give pretty good descriptions because of how close I am. Police didn't come for 15 minutes, which was pretty astounding to me based on how central we were located. That was really disappointing. The folks that were fighting were actually still in the park. And I was kind of like, I can point them out for you. Like, this is so frustrating. I've gone to 311. I was told that the issues, aside from violence, maybe the folks that I've spoken to weren't the right people, or rather didn't want to help me. They told me that they were issues that could not be addressed by the block association, such as vendors. There's always people sitting outside selling food, or people cutting hair, riding their bikes in the park, dogs off the leash. I was like, literally somebody try and help us. And I actually did speak with someone from Councilman Botcher's office recently, and he had told me that while they were aware of some issues in the park, what they were looking at was adding an additional entrance to the park because it's uncommon to just have one, which I think we did hear from someone from the Park Service earlier mention that. And I could see how maybe that could alleviate safety if there's something inside of the park, giving folks another opportunity to exit. And then they also talked about putting up another fence to segregate children's play areas. But when I said, okay, but what about the violence? I was actually told that they weren't aware that there was violence in the park. And that was very unsettling to me and kind of felt like a lie. That was very upsetting. So, I mean, again, this is my first chance or opportunity moment to come to a group like this, and I appreciate the open forum. While I might not be as eloquent as the others or have as many ideas as far as what we can do to alleviate it, I just want to bring attention to the fact that, you know, I think more and more folks are starting to be bothered by this. I live in a building where we have like a chat where we can talk to one another, and this is a issue that we're all focused on. I know my doormen don't feel safe. They said that they have had like screwdrivers pulled on them. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. And I also appreciate the empathy that people are extending and to the folks that are using the surrounding area. I share that empathy and the respect for others to have usage of these amenities, but certainly I wish I had more solutions, but I do want to raise my own voice and share that this is getting really bad.
Ariana, thank you for coming and thank you for being your first time. We always love it when people from the neighborhood come, because it's really important. And I'm gonna tell you, you might not know this, but what we do here is we talk about it on the committee and then we write letters, whether it's to agency, whether it's to the mayor's office, whether it's to the council member's office. So everything you just said will be considered actually and put into that letter. So you did good work. Come.
Can I just add, Ariana, welcome to the neighborhood or welcome to these forums. As I mentioned at the start of the meeting, I'm with the Midtown South Precinct Community Council. So is Ryan Marcano, who's a neighbor on 43rd Street.
Know what that is though, the precinct.
The Precinct Council is a monthly meeting with the commanding officer of the precinct. We do it via Zoom. And you can speak directly to the commanding officer about your safety concerns specific to your block, because this is a chronic condition that you're dealing with. You're on the Zoom, so perhaps someone could get her my email address so I can add you to the distribution list so you can come to the meetings.
If you're interested in that.
Yeah, if you're interested.
Janine, if you can.
Absolutely.
Can Ariana just chat with you or maybe there's no chat, but is there a way she can?
No, we don't have chat, but you can email me and we can speak on there.
Okay, can you just give the office email to her?
I'm sure. My email is jprentente@cb.nyc.gov.
That's CB as in Charlie Bravo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Is that it from the public, Janine?
Yeah, there's no one else.
Okay, thank you.
Can I say 10 seconds?
Sure. Wrap it quickly though, because we're
During
gonna.
10 seconds. So I love these conversations because they bring up real problems that real people are having on the street. The one of the things that is really frustrating for me as a community leader is that what are the solutions and what are the next steps? And what I would love to see, like if it was me and I was wearing a green shirt today, what I would be doing tomorrow would be setting up a meeting with the community leaders, getting together and going like, what can we do to solve these problems and start putting some kind of thing in action. I know so many people who have ideas, so like, that's what I would do. I don't see that. I would love to see more of that because what I'd like to see in 2 weeks, what's changed? What's changed in 4 weeks and what's changed in 6 weeks and what's changed by the new year? Because coming out of these meetings, what I normally see is that nothing changes. It's just people get frustrated, they get a chance to vent. Venting isn't enough. We need to have the solutions and we need to execute them. I am absolutely willing to participate in that, and I know a dozen other people I can call and be there tomorrow to do that as well. But Parks Department, you guys gotta take the lead on this. I've tried to do it, I'm done trying to do that. So if you guys want community help, we're here. So anyway, thank you, that was 20 seconds.
I just want to ask, have you been involved in these conversations with Eric Botcher's office and?
For years. I know
Nothing?
Brett Boylan, Eric Botcher,
Yeah.
Tony
So-
Simon, all those guys.
Are they involved in helping to try to come up with solutions here?
I think the problem that I see is that we're so busy moving the little pebbles that we're not moving the big boulders, right? And what I mean by that is that we're doing little things, but we're not solving big problems. And the problem with not solving the big problems is that they continue and they perpetuate. So like, I guarantee you, if we put a concerted community parks department police effort, we could solve McCaffrey playground in a matter of weeks. I would bet by the end of the year, we can have solutions executed in place if you got everybody together and came up like, okay, what are we actually going to do on a day-to-day basis to make it better in 2 weeks and in 4 weeks? And I know I'm an asshole, but I'm like, for saying this, but I'm like, I don't see this. And it's,
Okay.
it's very.
We get it.
Right.
We
I just
understand.
want to thank you and Max though, because, you know, in the interim, the little time period that you put us in contact, we were able to, you know, already sort of facilitate parks, getting support from the precinct to help them shutter the park. And I said step one, and thank you for making that
I'll take
happen.
full credit.
And Leslie, thank you for making that
And
happen.
Paul Evans too,
And
and
Paul,
Paul,
yeah.
but I just wanna thank you as well for
Yeah.
leading into the conversation with McCaffrey about a month ago.
Yeah,
Where I think we offered, we could set a monthly meeting about McCaffrey, if you still wanna do that, it's still on the table.
absolutely.
We can still 100% do that.
Fine.
Yeah.
And if everyone's gonna thank people, I'll go around, and I just wanna mention to everyone, I wanna thank Brian, only because people don't know that, he was the one, I mean, amongst all the other things that we do, but he was the one really primarily that got the summer program into that park. And those programs do not come to many parks. So to get that, I think it's 2 years in a row.
It's 2 years in a row where
It's a drop off, where anyone can just drop off their
I
kid.
don't think it's supposed to be a drop off.
Okay.
But
Maybe I'm fantasizing.
But no, it's a really good, it's a good program. We're hoping to get more use out of it from the neighborhood. But they were saying that it was picking up this year from the previous year. And I believe, and I, you know,
Yeah,
I
it's definitely a
believe it's
job.
gonna
I
happen
just,
this
so you
year.
know, that means that the parent doesn't have to stay
Yeah,
the whole time, so
Yeah.
that means a job, but yes. So just wanna, you did that, and that's a huge thing for our neighborhood, and people should take more better advantage of that, but they will as it goes on. So I think we can wrap this discussion up, right, guys? We will talk about a letter after, but I just want Parks to give a general update, because there are a few other, tree pits, little things, but.
Not even books,
Not even-
sorry, so
Let's go ahead.
we have a general update, but also a really quick presentation on the tool the Parks Board has, if you're thinking about that.
On the what?
A new tool we have.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
So that's a really quick update, we can make that really quick, so let's see the computer for that.
Yes. Janine, Max is gonna take the computer for a minute.
Just share the screen.
Hey, guys, we're still in a meeting, so can we, if you want to, you can.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, so, thank you for allowing me to be here today and introduce you to Vital
Paul, can
Parks.
you please come up here? So
Certainly.
you take the stage.
I'm happy to be here to talk to you about Vital Parks for All, which is investing in New York City's living infrastructure. This is New York City Parks' vision to strengthen the city's health, environment, and communities through our park system. As you know, our parks are essential for the well-being of our city and our lives. They're extensions of our living spaces, safe havens for gathering, and critical to livability. Parks believes that every New Yorker needs access within their own community parks that are clean and safe, green, resilient, and supported by engaged and empowered New Yorkers like you. Now, I want you to pay attention because there's gonna be a quiz, and you're gonna learn how to use this system firsthand. New York City faces urgent challenges such as the epidemic of loneliness, climate change, declining life expectancy, aging infrastructure, and increased park usage since COVID-19. To address these crises, we're making an initial investment of $3.2 billion to deliver more Vital Parks benefits to the communities that need them the most. Through Vital Parks for All, we're connecting New Yorkers with the extensive mental and physical health benefits of parks, social connection and community unity through shared facilities and events, and environmental benefits like heat reduction and improved air quality. We're also empowering New Yorkers with the data they need to celebrate and advocate for their own parks. We've launched the Vital Parks Explorer, which you're kind of looking at right here, a tool that provides New Yorkers with information about their community's access to more than 20 key elements that make up a Vital Park system and how it compares to communities across the city. You can use the Explorer to see how well served your community is by these components of a flourishing park system, and if gaps exist, advocate for more resources to fill them. You can also focus on your individual park and how well it's doing through the My Parks Vital Signs tool. A profile of every park in the city. My Parks Vital Signs include recent capital investment, mapped trees, events, volunteer engagement opportunities, and a park condition score that shows its level of cleanliness and maintenance. You can check the Vital Parks Explorer and My Parks Vital Signs by visiting nyc.gov/vitalparks and give us your feedback or send in any questions.
So, before we begin, let's just go to the calendar, let's just talk about something really quick. So that was the script we just wanted to read, so every community board gets the same information, that's getting right across the city right now. And I'm super glad David brought up the commissioner forum. If you guys want to attend, it's on the 25th of this month, actually at Chelsea Rec Center. I can send you guys the invite, please come.
Yeah, can you?
Yes,
It would be nice
absolutely.
to tell,
Yeah, absolutely. You guys should have got the form already. I'm sorry you did not. But please come. It's on the 25th at Chelsea Rec in the evening about 6 or 6:30. The Commissioner Donahue is going to be there along with other parks divisions. And we're going to talk about this Vital Parks Initiative, which is really about making the parks board more transparent, which I hope you guys are starting to see. I know it's not super apparent yet, but by bringing Pep here tonight, by having my phone number, my email, having his phone number, his email, you guys are welcome to contact us anytime. We're trying to make all the data we have about our city's park system more out there and more accessible to you guys. So the Vital Parks Initiative is really about data transparency, and there's two ways to explore this initiative. One is the actual system itself, which is, I'll show you in a second, it's a map, and the second is the vital signs, which really gives that qualitative measure. So this Vital Parks Explorer is a map of the city. It's organized by community districts. So CD4, Manhattan 4 is right here, obviously. You can see different shades of green. That's when you click active recreation areas, community gardens, cool features, and so on. It's a feature of a park. So if you were to click hiking trails, for example, you can see that 0% of your board is within a 15-minute transcendental hiking trail. And it's just a way to see how your community district differs from other community districts, so you guys can see the gaps firsthand of what you guys are experiencing. So if you were to click CD4, you'll see all the vital signs and all the different metrics for your community board. So in terms of active recreation, which is like basketball courts, fields, and everything, 86% of you within a 10-minute walk of one of those amenities, which is not the case across the city. So you guys are very rich in that. Just to keep in mind, this data is only reflective of New York City parks. So private facilities are not reflected in it, state facilities are not reflected in it. So if you don't click, let me just next out of this zoom over here. Sorry about that. If you were to click, for example, public restrooms, 79% of you are within 70%, or 70% of you, 79% of you within a 10-minute walk of any public restroom. So explore this on your own, take a look at it. If you were to go to,
Don't want to take a live question?
Yeah, sure.
Does anybody have let's test it live.
Okay, sure.
Does anybody have a question about what's going in a particular,
How does
district?
McCaffrey Park,
Pep officer in that.
Data related.
You need a second C in there.
Sorry. This keyboard's not.
McCaffrey delivery service comes in first.
It's okay, just this. All right, next one. So the vital signs are now on the right side of the screen. What that means is the condition scores are 92. I know that's
Oh
not.
my gosh.
Okay,
Oh my gosh.
It sounds like the DSNY sidewalk cleanliness scores.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I was afraid of.
so take a look at it. This is pure data. This is not subjective. It is not subjective. But that condition score is true though. It has a bathroom, it has a drinking fountain, it has safety service that meets our standards. From data wise, without the human element there, it gets a 92.
It doesn't mention drug activity.
So crime is a metric. If you go to the Explorer here, Parks Enforcement Patrol, this is continuously getting approved. So if you guys have suggestions of what you guys want to see on here, please tell us. Because we can always add stuff to it. The idea of it is this is now available to you. And we're trying to make this data more accessible.
Is there a way to almost kind of let the public leave reviews for parks? So again, your vital signs are based purely on data. It doesn't take into account the actual conditions on the ground. Okay, there's a water fountain, but some guy is washing himself in a water fountain or you're gonna use it. So I think having almost like a Yelp for the park.
That's a fine idea, hold on, that's a fine idea. If you guys want us to address that, please click this. Like, we are looking at this. We actually are looking at this, just like we went through when we are looking at this. This is like version
Max
one.
himself.
Yeah, no, this is version one of this tool. If you
From
guys
July.
have suggestions, please.
This is very cool.
You know, we're not like other city agencies that might just send a community representative, nothing wrong with that, but you actually get the people that are in charge of your district at these meetings. You get your park manager, you get me, you get your PEP director. Like, we are all ears, and this is just another way to really get that out there.
Let me also respond to the urination and the other condition questions. So you're probably not aware that there were several tiers of park inspections that actually occur. They happen on a weekly basis by the park supervisors. They do basically a diagnostic inspection of the conditions. We have a book of standards that they're supposed to make. They rate the park and then they actually fail conditions. And the condition fails, they put in a work order to have it addressed. We either address it locally or we have the shops or the borough crews come in and address them. We also are rated, we have high stakes inspection by the park inspection program inspectors.
Which is what you see right here, and that's also available to you.
Yes, and this is like, you know, the teacher gave you a pop quiz and they showed up. So this is the actual condition of the park. Now, when you're talking about, oh, there was something on the ground, or there was litter or whatever. Day-to-day operations, maintenance should be going through, that's my team, should be going through and cleaning up and addressing those conditions. So that either number one, the supervisor, you know, when he's inspecting, doesn't see it, or when the PIP inspector is inspecting, he doesn't see it. So this is very, very, you know, reliable data. It's not, no data is perfect. I'm a school testing coordinator. I know that no data is perfect, but this is a true picture of the condition of the parks.
And you can see that he got dinged, his team got dinged for having unacceptable cleanliness rating at McCaffrey. So we do rate ourselves, so this does get factored into the data. This is from our parks inspection unit, which is a third party, they inspect our parks. Basically, whatever, they don't tell us they're a unit of parks, we're not supposed to have much communication with them about the inspections, make sure the data is clean.
Graffiti doesn't seem like the right answer over there.
It's a tough day for this, but yes.
Yeah, no, it's good though, it's a good day for it, any day's good for it.
That graffiti is probably the graffiti on the adjacent walls of the park. That's on the east side, and also we covered the stuff on the west side. We got dinged for graffiti that's really not ours.
This is wonderful.
Yeah, so.
Yes, sir. Kate, wait, hold on, the board first and then Katie. Sorry. That's okay.
I just wanna make sure that I heard the number right. This entire Vital Parks initiative has a cost of 3.2
Okay.
billion.
It's a billion, that can't be real.
No, it is, it's a capital improvement. It's a
Initial
company.
investment.
Oh, not the,
Deliver on the level.
not the website.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
You never know.
I didn't think it was just the website. So it's 3.2 billion and it's capital
Yes.
improvements, and so that's hard infrastructure. It's unfortunate that it's only capital and we can't, as part of, well, I mean, the select strategic initiatives talks about doing programming and activating the parks. So that to me seems like more of an expense. It would be great if some of the 3.2 billion could be used to hire additional PEP officers.
I could double check, but I believe it's all capital, but let me double check.
Well,
Yeah.
but activate like free outdoor programs, is that capital or is that expense?
Well, that's a separate metric, that's just how the park is activated, that's not really an investment from us.
It's a
per se.
256 million investment in park facilities and priority precincts, complemented by over 1,000 free outdoor programs to
Yeah.
activate parks and foster community improvement safety.
Let me ask if the events are included in the number, I don't think they
Well, improving
are,
safety is there, maybe we can.
but a lot of those events we count as like volunteer events or like council member sponsored events.
Got it,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a shame, I mean, $3.2 billion, there's a handful of PEP
We have
officers, would
3
be
officers,
wonderful.
yeah. Roberta?
So
And then,
I guess when particularly the capital funding is allocated, is that done like via a somewhat objective set of data-driven criteria? Or is there room for like the community to look at the data and say, this is the argument we'd like to make for X, Y, Z?
Well, that's how we want you guys to use this. We want you guys to look at our data now. we're giving our data to you guys to look at. So you guys can say, you know, we don't live within 10-minute transit ride of whatever, and we walk out of district. And you can use this as backup.
But does that have any impact? Like, does that have any impact on how the
Oh, yeah,
money
there's
is
like,
allocated?
through the PB process, or the community work funding process, absolutely. Because we do listen to you guys in terms of your priorities.
And
Yeah.
that capital money
Yeah.
is allocated through a participatory budgeting process?
No, so, okay, so.
Sorry, you just mentioned it, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. So when you guys set your priorities, with the clear priorities, which is one thing. We also have disadvantaged communities like gun violence reduction zones. So like citywide initiatives that allocate money based off this stuff is also another way. But we do use this data to allocate money, and really importantly, we use a condition score from our PIP team about if a playground is unacceptable or it keeps failing inspection on a playground safety surface. That's set up for capital renovation. It gets bumped up, like we need to fix that failing inspection.
Ella, then Rowan.
Okay, this is awesome, because like, just as like a resident, I'm often looking for like hiking trails in like a certain area. And Google Maps is literally, and it's just often like unreliable, so this is really fantastic. How many New York City parks do we have in CB4? I don't know that.
Well, you have to just like parks you can go into, or like Reed Streets. I can get you the exact numbers.
Like,
Yeah.
I think it's like in CB4.
It's 14.
Is it 14 actual parks? Yeah.
That's it. I have to remember, I think it's either 12 or 14.
Okay, yeah, that was up. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of great things that I just saw. Can you go up?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there was this one section where it was just about events and
Oh, yes.
starting a volunteer group.
That's over here.
Yeah, I like,
Yeah.
how cool is that? Just to see like what kinds of events are happening at your
Yeah.
local
Oh, yeah.
parks. And then also, like, if there's, like, I'd love to know about volunteer groups, like, you know, if there's an active like planting or, you know, weeding session.
So like the
You
block,
mentioned that.
Yeah.
the block association that, you know, volunteers in this park really should be over here. It should be listed. It says no active volunteer groups. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think there might be a volunteer group here. And it's really being up to date with us and taking a look at this and telling us what's wrong with it.
Like, what happens if you click on that link right there, help start a volunteer group?
It should just give you to the page for Harsh's Parks, yeah.
I see.
And they're a great resource.
There is a volunteer group, actually.
Yeah.
Is there a way to, connect to the community board through this? Like,
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's
Small feedback, please.
from the neighborhood, and then
Yeah, it's a great
click
idea.
that, and they could reach out to
the
us?
WPE, yeah.
And just while on this, you guys got our tree mat online. This is another example.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people love this now, because we now have mapped every single street tree that we have.
That's great. I remember they came to our community board like 4 years ago, like,
You know,
you can
So-
actually get a tree and what it is.
this Vital Parks tool is really just an extension of us trying to get our data out there.
This is great.
Yeah.
Max, on there, is
Yeah.
there an update to say like, okay, your tree has been requested,
Oh, yeah.
here's your timeline?
Oh, in terms of planting and pruning,
Yes,
not yet. We just have inspections,
okay.
which will say like what a work order generally is taking place. But it doesn't get into the greater detail. If you have a question about that, just email me, and I can find it.
So, Max, can you go back to the page where it talked about the McCaffrey statistics?
Absolutely.
Right there.
Yeah.
This is indeed very exciting. I am though troubled with this particular page when, after all I've heard, you guys just did an inspection in August, and the worst that it came, they got a score of 8 out of 10, which sounds like it's a pretty good score. And the only unacceptable feature is graffiti.
There's much more in these individual categories. This is just.
What are those categories? Is there gonna be like drug use, violence?
That's.
It's like conditions of the actual infrastructure, not like social conditions.
Exactly.
Should that be added?
It's a good suggestion. I mean, I don't know how we would qualitatively put that on there, but, it is.
Could there be
subjective.
like an area for observations?
I think that's a good idea. You guys
Of just like
that's it,
notes?
For real.
Yelp light.
Yeah.
Or just safety,
Yeah.
right? Safety and the PEP scheme.
Or community
gives it a
comments
score.
or something. Maybe that could be a feature on it, but please suggest that. Again, we are continuously adding to this tool.
Because there's
What is suggested?
On the
Website,
website,
on the
on the
website,
Vital
website.
Parks website, at the bottom in the
Yes.
blue, it says share your feedback.
And so this was built, a lot of it was built in-house. We didn't hire some humongous consulting firm or whatever. We did have some outside people help us, but for the vast majority, we have IT people in parks. And they're really talented and they did a lot of this work. So we're really excited
It's
about
pretty
it.
cool.
Oh, yeah, no, it is
Yeah.
fantastic, but there is a disconnect
Yeah,
from
Sure.
what I've heard today
Yeah.
to what I'm seeing on the website, and I think we need to somehow have a way to connect.
Well,
the
I think
two.
once someone said data is not human, right? It's very, so you're right, like the human element, the on the ground element, you know, if a knife fight happens on a Friday night, it's not gonna show up here. It's hard, so that's, you're right, it's
And please come to the forum on the 25th and share that directly with our Parks Commission. Like, we're all ears.
It would be nice to have observation one where you just upload a photo and go, here's Southern Needles.
Yeah.
Here's everybody in the play area. There's just raw evidence people can actually show and say, what are we doing? And it's here on this day. And here's the block. We got 14 photos today. She walks by and hits it. And that might get more reaction.
You could have a column that says crime rate too.
Problem is, I don't think Parks
You know,
wants to be involved.
They call 0%, yeah.
Well, can you already do that with the 311 app, or you can,
Well, you just heard, she called 311 6 times
right?
and they,
311 is not always useful.
right, and that's my point.
No way this would be any more useful.
Katie, go ahead.
Springboarding off what Brad was saying about uploading images of syringes and all this other stuff, you know, that is all stuff you can currently do through 311. So do any of the vital stats take into account 311 service requests?
We
for
were not the
parks?
first CB group to suggest that. Maybe that should be a category on here.
I mean, I think that would be good because sometimes trying to navigate open data can be very complicated and this is a very visually easy to understand portal. So if there's a way to, you know, be able to fetch that from open data and make it into like a visual way that could help give people a better idea. Cause I think then if you have people reporting these incidents, that kind of adds a little more narrative to the data.
It's not isolated, it's use that information, everyone works together.
It should be a hot map like we did for our environmental side. And they turn around and go, what's the most dangerous part? Well, boom, this got the most complaints, there's the most problems that we're getting from the community.
I don't know if Parks wants to.
That's why I just said, I don't think they wanna
Yeah,
be.
right.
Unfortunately.
But it could help us understand what the problems are and then advocate for the services to help address those problems.
I think the thing that you should note is that, like, if there is a knife fight occurring in the park, if you're seeing narcotic activity, please call 911. That's not for the parks enforcement officers, that's for NYPD, as you pointed out, and 911 and 311 are vital data resources. I mean, I did look at the complaints for McCaffrey in advance of coming, and a lot of people don't report to 911 or 311, they just go, none in the park, I'll just not go in. So that data isn't necessarily captured, but it's important that everyone, you know, use 911 when there's a crime in progress.
Yeah, I mean, PEP is really for civil infractors, right? EPD is really for criminal offenses.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Any more questions on? Oh, Steve,
I just had one question. So the data back when it said, the safety and then the empowered community, I think there was, women, right?
Yeah.
And I apologize, I stepped out, so you might have covered this, but, so when it says clean state, as of store 92, and then down below, it says empowered and engaged users. And I think I see a 1. So what is that based on? Like, what does empowered engaged users mean?
So that's a great question, actually. We do have it outlined in this, it's with our analysis tab. So like clean and safe is all these different categories, so it's really how a park feels, how is it clean, is it safe, is it, you know, comfortable to be in? So a park condition score above 95 is probably a big data point there. That means that the park is really well maintained, it's really clean. If it scores below that, it's gonna really significantly reduce that rating. Then green and resilience, everything to do with the environment, so canopies, trees, stuff like that. Stormwater capture is a huge one of that. And then engage empowered users is really what this tool is. It's engaging and empowering you guys to advocate in your parks and find where these gaps are in the park system and help us fix that.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so that's really clear. I guess my question is like, when I see clean and safe,
Yeah.
and the bullet points under that are sports and drinking fountains and playgrounds and pools, whatever. I'm slightly disconnected because clean and safe to me is more about like human bodies, right? Like you can go in without whatever, like this almost seems more like
Amenities.
facilities or amenities that are there, so like,
I guess,
clean and safe.
No tripping hazards.
I guess the methodology of that is we want people to have a positive experience in the park. And by providing these amenities, you're giving them that positive experience. If the park is barren, it kind of encourages negative activity. So that's the methodology, and that's a great point, and it's something to bring up with Sue and the commissioner when you see them on the 25th.
Yeah, because like, when I see clean and safe, right, like just as this meeting was about, right, like McCaffrey is obviously not clean and safe, but. And I forget what the score was, but I think clean and safe should be a category. I just think right now there's a little bit of a misnomer, and that it's not really like clean and safe as a header under what's there doesn't really make sense to me. As like empowered engaged users does. Right, because if it's the community, but I guess I would also like, how is that scored? Because we use Matthews Palmer all the time. And I don't know if we are like engaged how, and that we're doing
Submitting
work.
your event to the parks.
Or that we're doing work like in collaboration with Parks Department.
That doesn't have a hard number attached to it, and this 92 is not really a number for clean and safe, it's more just the park condition score under clean and safe. So there is no hard number assigned to that, it's just how much activity is actually happening there, which if you go back here. And you click on like the volunteer groups, for example, or like volunteer events, you can see that it works in all the categories of our methodology. And if you go to Matthews Palmer, I mean, 91% for District 4 is great, that basically means that. What is the metric there? It's with a 10-minute walk of a park that is actively programmed, basically. So yeah, that's that, but that's a great point.
I mean, the only reason I bring it up, and the last thing I'll say is, the only reason I bring it up is just because if public reads that and they have and it says clean and safe and they have a different take on it, then what starts to happen is you start to get a bigger disconnect, which can be a PR problem, you know, or like actually a safety problem. So I'll look at it in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you.
We go on to parks, general parks updates.
Yes.
You basically heard the real juicy tea.
We're interested in Matthews Palmer. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't gonna bring it up. Scaffolding is down.
Why not? Don't you want to be congratulated for the scaffolding finally coming down?
I don't know if it's a safe thing to discuss. So scaffolding is down. There were some divots to be repaired where the footings were. That's too common. Other park issues. So Hell's Kitchen, we know that there's somebody cutting the lock to sneak in and have these wild parties. Yeah, well, listen, it happens. We've been accused of not locking the playground. Locking the playground, somebody is cutting the lock by the handball court, coming in to have wild parties. We're replacing that lock, we're keeping an eye on it. And for Ponte.
What park are you talking about?
Hell's Kitchen Park.
On the side entrance on 48th Street.
And for Ponte Playground, we were also accused of not locking the park. We found the guy with the key who's been opening up whatever. And so we're gonna change that lock too. We want to get them all welded on when we replace them. And I just wanted to say, I don't know how this guy got the key. I've come under a little bit of fire from some community folks say, oh, we can lock it, we can do it. Whenever we give a key to somebody in the community, it always, and I've been doing this work almost 20 years now, it always ends up in the hands of someone who really shouldn't have. So it's very important that, we do the locker. That's a report, to be very, very listening.
So I did see, the Matthews Farmer, scaffolding gone and kids playing in there. I mean, it's the first time I've seen that park without the scaffolding, which is lovely. I know I did see the divots and it is kind of, you know, to the side, didn't seem to bother the kids whatsoever. But they were using the basketball court to play soccer because the hoops are not connected to backboards. Is there a plan to put the hoops back up prior to the court being resurfaced?
So the only reason we haven't put the hoops back up yet is because those divots at the contractor's sidewalk shed left. We actually consider that a trip hazard and legal turn hazard. They're about a half an inch deep to about an inch deep, and that's really unfortunate because it's in the planning service itself. So we have another meeting with that contractor, because anytime someone goes into our park, they have to sign a construction permit, and attach that construction permit is liability insurance and all this other stuff, right? So we do hold contractors responsible for the damage that they cause, and if it is deemed that they caused that, you know, we're gonna hold them responsible for it, and that could be many different ways. So more to come on that, but right now the court is not safe to us to put the hoops back up. So if a kid is playing there and he doesn't look at the ground, he could tear his ankle and injure himself.
But, you know, unfortunately, kids are still playing there regardless of the hoops not being there, so it's still a
We did-
liability. But I don't want it to be like shut off.
No, we just quartered it off really, we did quarter it off.
I will confirm that it is cordoned off tomorrow.
And then after we have the meeting with the building, we're gonna look into cold patching it with asphalt for a temporary measure, just to make it safe enough to play on. And then we'll put the hoops back up, and then hopefully a long-term fix will happen.
Okay, which would probably be more like in the spring.
It has to, because we can't color seal it right now.
Yeah.
I have another issue for you. You promised us, last month that you would give us timeline updates for, park construction issues.
What do you have a question about?
Well, there's Penn South Playground, there was stuff in Clinton. There was a third as well, but at least those two.
I can give you those. So Penn South, your question about, so you check the most recent status. So
And while you're looking up, are we getting our bathroom there?
Penn South, it's not in the budget right now, but we did leave the possibility of adding this, the Portland Blue, that single occupancy stall later on in the design, which is super nice, because we just installed that in we're installing at Thomas Jefferson right now. Hopefully it's gonna work out good, so that's a design right now. The design completion is scheduled to be completed, let me make sure it's on track, I will make sure it's on track. The procurement completion is next year around the summer, I will get back to you on the exact timeline of that. But it should be out of design right now, it should be at procurement, but let me double check.
That was fast.
Yeah.
The design completion is next summer or design completion is
The
now?
design completion should have been done, but let me check that that's the case, that's what it's saying in my system, but sometimes, you know, let me just talk to the people.
And what happened? We asked you questions about, Hillary Clinton as well. I saw that.
So DeWitt Clifton, for which the reconstruction of the playground 1B in the area
I
2,
don't
or?
think there's any construction.
No,
I
it's
think
not, it's on the
what we
proposed
had in
project.
our budget discussion had talked about that there is like a good deal of money that
Yeah,
has
5
been
million.
allocated.
5 minutes.
So
5 million,
questioning,
needed 12.
yeah, but questioning, instead of waiting to have the whole pot as construction
Right.
costs go up, is there anything that could be done with that 5 million
Yeah.
to
Oh,
address the concerns?
One.
And how do we get that to happen?
Yeah,
We're talking with Steve.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
talked about
like,
this.
there might be more money coming too from
Yeah.
another elected group.
Yes. But,
We're hoping that we can combine those to do a good chunk of it.
yeah,
So.
yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I just wanted to jump back to Matthew's Farmer real quick. So, it seems like there's a lot more going on than was reported. So I met a couple of people there and they were telling me they were filling out the bathroom and they were telling me that there's approximately $2 million allocated to redo the bathroom. And that might be a multi-year process. So like, the community has not been told about this potential at all. And also like the basketball court,
Last year, I think.
so I would love that to be part of our report, but.
Sure, so,
But also the basketball court. So the scaffolding was up for 6 years. It's now gone. The basketball court has some problems that needs to be repaired. It's the contractor's fault, the co-op's fault. I mean, I'd love to know something a little bit more concrete than, you know, we hope to hold them accountable. Like, to me, they are accountable. And if they are accountable, then it should just be like a full court press, because these guys have already, because of the people who hired them, stolen that portion of the park for 6 years. And I can guarantee you the community is like, if they don't see the basketball courts up and basketball court repaired, you know, people are just gonna get really pissed. I mean, I'm gonna be like, on the next meeting with the commissioner, like.
Can I cut in here real quick?
The
The question you're asking is when.
It's not only that, but they just said 5 minutes ago, they're gonna put down some tent patch. Because 6 years ago, when they hired that contractor, put that scaffold up, it's not there. There are 2-3 contractors in. Nobody's being allowed to the building. So what we're asking them is to do the patch. And that's, and then we can get the basketball done. I think we're all agreed.
and the only reason I'm not speaking in definitive terms is I'm not a lawyer, and I don't wanna speak for our law department. But we do
find out.
Yeah, well,
That's the thing, right? It's like, we could ask those questions and find out.
We just wanna put the patch on, because if you're gonna go to court and be all that, we can't wait.
yeah, no,
That's
that's
all
all
he's
this point of
trying to
too. We want to get used. We have $2.2 million for that bathroom, by the way. And that's in a bundled project with a bunch of other bathrooms. That design did not start yet. That's why you're not hearing about the community board yet. When we start the design, you will hear about it for sure.
Anyone else, any other updates, anything? No? It's a big Parks Day tonight. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you for running.
Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna now talk as a committee for our members.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Paul. You, Matt, and Paul.
Come again soon.
Yes.
Well, you're coming next month anyway, Paul, right? Sure.
You guys have my cell phone too. You call me
Max, I'll
anytime.
talk to you in the morning.
Thanks, everybody.
You know whose cell phone we want? Eddie's.
And
That's whose cell phone we want.
I'll ask him when I'm ready to give you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Madam Chair, next question.
Of course you can, Brett.
Where are representatives from the electeds?
That's what I just said.
Because I know, but I bring it up every month and I brought it up at the big meeting. No, I know Matt, because he was here at every meeting. Right.
I think Jordan was on.
And we get nobody, and we sit here, we're trying to solve problems, they don't even show up on Zoom. This is total BS.
They're not, I mean, what's going
Total
on?
BS.
They
And by the way, I wanna talk to the chair and say, no one of their monthly reports that we gotta sit through, because they're not coming here. So if they wanna give us a report, show up, you earn your right to speak at the monthly meeting. This is ridiculous. Right, they don't even show up by Zoom. It's a joke.
And their monthly report is really in their newsletter.
I don't even care. We used to get,
People want information.
we want them here to them to go right back to the left and say, do you know what's going on over there? These people are going nuts. What are we doing?
I would like.
It's unbelievable. I brought it up for, right after going to Zoom time, like, where are they? Ridiculous.
You're talking about McCaffrey, right? Sally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand, I don't understand that they're not deep, you know, up to their arm.
Because they're not
trying to
here.
Fix it. Not only they're not here, but apparently outside of here, they're not here. I mean, he should be making a lot more, they should be deeply involved in this. This is their community. I don't understand it. I mean, I
I think Matt's texting Jordan right now. Took a hole.
They were there and they showed up and they helped us solve problems.
Used to be in meetings, they were physically there, they would get up, they would get the phone number, they would talk to Jesse, and would help us run our agenda. Doesn't happen anymore. Now it's just falling on Jesse, which isn't right. They need to be here. I'm here, you're here. That's the job.
Have we asked them? I don't know, I mean, can we ask the electeds, like, hey, come to our next committee meeting, give an update
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
the budget, your allocations?
Well, it's not that, I think to Brad's point, it's not that we don't want them to show
They're
up
here
for
to
an
listen.
update. We want a community liaison at every single meeting, like it used to be. Pre-pandemic, Carl was at every meeting.
Every meeting.
Yeah, and
They were great. That's how we got.
You have
them.
Hannah, you have Jordan, I mean, there's plenty of people on Eric's staff, he has a staff photographer.
they come to our meeting.
I mean,
they come.
let's be honest.
They don't miss a CCTV, sometimes there, of every office, and sometimes them, so this is a little shocking.
I mean, I don't think we should direct it towards Matt right now. Or Matt is a bit far removed.
No, I think it's important to get updates, they should.
And if you just,
But,
it's
yeah.
interesting if you disagree, I mean, I'd like to hear that point of view, that, well, no, they shouldn't be courts, but it's not been my experience. My experience is that they are deeply involved.
Yeah,
You live in Chelsea, no offense. It's the harsh reality.
We can make some nice calls and just,
Yeah.
from now on, you can just give a little heads up and just say, I mean, listen. And I will maybe take some blame for this because I knew, or probably knew that McCaffrey might have been a heated, maybe I should have given him an extra heads up.
No, I think our chair should email the electors and say, we expect the representatives at our meeting, if not in person, by Zoom. That's what I would recommend. I've been saying it for a while. It's ridiculous.
I do think Jordan is on and listening, I think he is
He was
on this one. Yeah.
After he texted
No,
on that. We're gonna-
No, he has been, I'm not, I
Well,
believe
if
so.
that's the
well,
case, then I apologize.
I mean, he is often, if you go onto the Zooms, he is often on these, I don't wanna say that he is on the Zoom now, but I will
But
say,
he's
it does
texted
not
me,
go.
he's been on the entire time, actually, he would like to speak if he can, I don't know. if you can bring him on.
Well, let's take, Matt, can you take this?
Can I take, oh, yeah,
Yeah, hold on, let's stop sharing.
I can stop, you got it.
Thanks. Can you bring Jordan over?
Okay.
Because I think there was actually, Jordan specifically, there was the woman who came on Zoom and said she called Eric Botcher's office and was very upset at the response she got when she said about the fighting and this, and they said they really would know about her, and then there was nothing done, so maybe it is.
No, what they said to her was, oh yeah, we understand we need a new entrance there.
Yeah, right.
They didn't know anything else.
So what I
Under
said to
our-
her, hey everyone, Jordan from Eric Botcher's office. I've been here since 6:30. Brad, I hear you loud and clear. I understand. I know Carl, my chief of staff, was at, Chelsea land use yesterday. No, sorry, Clinton Hills Kitchen land use yesterday. I've been here. I often do come to these meetings. I don't come in person. I can try and come in person more often, certainly. I hear you loud and clear, Brad, but I do want to say that we do often have a presence here. I understand that. I spoke with, I believe her name's Ariana, who called in earlier, I think about 2 weeks ago. I spoke with her. I talked about the problems that we've had. We've met with some constituents, including with the Parks Department, with Max at McCaffrey Playground in the past as well, and so we're trying to work on these issues as well. Does the park need a complete redesign? Probably yes. Is that something that we're having conversations about to try and get done? Yes, and I understand, and I listen to the conversations, and I bring everything back to the council member on top of that as well. If you want me to try and be there in person a little bit more, I'm happy to try and do that when I
No,
can.
Jordan, this is what I'm saying. We have a community-based member here that's directly talking to the police and putting together the Parks Department himself. And that should be coming from your office. Meaning, let's all get in the room and talk about it. Let's coordinate. And I'm just saying, is that happening? Because until you started calling them and they started getting their own key, nothing was done. So I get we need everybody, but it's enough. The gloves are off. I'm tired of doing these meetings, same thing's happening, and we're not getting any response. We write a letter. It's not enough.
Next, there was a monthly meeting. Right?
I'm here as.
I know.
I'm precinct community council.
I know.
And stuff, so I do appreciate what you're saying. I have been in McCaffrey with Jordan and Eric, not necessarily about the most recent thing, but you know, to Bruce's point, we always love to see council members' office, and I just remember, you know, where I met Matt was serving on Community Board 4. There was always somebody from Corey's office at all the precinct meetings that got disrupted during the pandemic. But I think it's a really good note.
I think specifically, Jordan, I think this is a hot button topic, obviously McCaffrey, just because of the safety issues and what's going on, so maybe it's a little more heated than, you know, usual topics. But I know we've been bringing this up to the council member's office, and I think one of the solutions was adult gym equipment, you know, now we're talking about renovation. But I think it goes more than just, right, you know, there are on the ground needs that some of these residents are having right now. And I don't know if some of them maybe are thought as sensitive, but they should be addressed just for safety and use of the park wise. That's all, I don't want.
Completely. It's clear that enforcement has been appalling at that park.
It just to me, these are month-long blitz, and Eric gets things done. And I'm surprised we bring in DOT, put the bike onto the street, take 2 slots, you know what I mean? There's solutions that can be done and Eric gets stuff done. I think that's what we need. And it needs a month-long blitz.
Sure.
We heard it from them. It's
And
very
that's-
logical to say that, but you know, it's a daily thing here for a month. And then what's our results? What worked, what didn't?
That's something that we've had many conversations with Max about. You know, we send PEP out there. We've met at there with the Parks Department, with constituents as well. I would love to, you know, tell the NYPD, you know, you should go here. Many of the phone calls that I have are basically saying, we're hearing concerns about this specific location. And, you know, we're telling the NYPD we're hearing it here. We hear the same issues, and that's exactly why it's in its statement of district needs, you know, where we need more resources, more people, more things like that can come out and go to these areas. I wish I could say, or Eric could say, we need to see enforcement here and we need to see a blitz like that. That's not how it operates. We'll advocate for that. And that's something I'll tell the council member 100%, you know, especially at McCaffrey, where we are seeing these issues and they've been plaguing that area for quite some time. So I'll continue to push for that. And, you know, I know the council member will as well. But I hear you loud and clear. But I wanted to say that I've been here since 6:30. I've been listening. You know, I got through the full thing, and I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I can try for that in the
Jordan,
future.
I didn't know you were here, so thank you. I apologize.
Just to maybe help
Genuinely.
solve this problem in our new hybrid, can we make a policy that
Yeah.
representatives from elected officials are panelists?
Yes.
So we know
Yes.
they're here and they can raise their hand and speak more immediately?
Yes.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's exactly what used to happen. You used to say, oh, we're working with it. As a council member went and met with the.
Yeah.
And also,
Zoom is hard.
Zoom is hard, because someone goes out to eat dinner, you know, like you're going to Zoom is hard, you know, it's hard to be. You're
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
so
but-
they should be active.
He shouldn't be lurking. He should do.
Jordan, don't lurk.
Well, it's not his fault.
No, I know, just be acknowledged, but, and we also have.
The lurking position would be elevated to participant,
Yeah.
which is what you're
But he
saying.
was here,
Yeah.
so. I think-
Just acknowledged.
yeah. Okay.
Of all of the committees at CB4, I probably, and we can look back at the YouTubes. I think I've spoken at this committee the most, you know, but you know, I'm happy to be a panelist, move forward, or things like that, especially as we move forward.
Thank you, Jordan. We're gonna move on. Is that okay?
That's fine by me.
You can listen.
I will. I'll still be here.
All right, thank you, Jordan.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jordan.
Okay, let's just move on. I just wanna, because it's 9:15 and we have maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3 or 4, depending which way we wanna go, but let's go step by step. Let's go PEPs. Does anyone have, does anyone want to make a motion for a letter, and then we can talk about what we wanna write and who we wanna write it to? Sally?
Yeah, we should have, I think we should have a letter. I mean, I can't believe the number of, offices there are. I mean, it's incredible now, but we've asked for the funding, you know, so I don't know if there's really anything more to do. I mean, you have a better idea of how, you know, effective the letters would be, but we have been asking the mayor's office and everybody that we can for more money for Parks Department, and it doesn't seem to be forthcoming, so I don't know if it means anything or not.
Roberta.
I don't know if Sally made a motion, we're discussing it, or,
Does anyone make a motion for a letter? Let's get it on the record here. Thank you, Roberta. Okay, thank you.
yeah, so, I would like to move a motion for a letter specifically to, advocate for increased funding for parks enforcement officers. Would like that letter to contain the data that we learned this evening, as well as, I believe there's a little bit of parks enforcement officer data in the Vital Parks Initiative data, and so just to memorialize that, that will also enable us to write this into our statement of district needs for what I assume will also be needed next year. Yeah.
Doesn't need to be a long letter.
No.
Well, I think, yeah, but I think it can be a strong letter about
Yes.
how this is a priority. Because though it's in our statement of district needs, which is great, that's a very big document that
Oh, I
goes, and there's no details in it. When you have a letter, be like, we need this right now, it's a little more, hopefully, it's a little more, you know, I don't wanna say impactful, well, yeah, maybe impactful,
Well,
or immediate,
I like.
yeah, okay, Did you raise your hand, Dave, or no? Oh, I thought you raised your, no, okay, anyone else for some, I mean, I took down notes in anticipation, but does anyone have any other points specifically that kind of know what's gonna go in the PEP's letter, the need for it, but.
One thing that stood out to me, Leslie, is that they seem to, the Parks Department seems to split the responsibilities of the park closing in two different groups. There are the pet people who, I guess, try and keep things safe, and then it's the maintenance people who actually do the closing of the park.
No, so hold on, let me correct, PEPs are not on staff when they close the park, there are no PEPs.
Well,
It's
that's
6
what I'm
PM
saying.
and then- Yeah,
Right, that division of labor seems to be problematic, at least to me, because the maintenance people don't have any authority.
Right.
The PEP do, it's limited authority, but they have some authority. It seems to me like they would be more effective in closing a park than maintenance people who have no authority.
We've,
So I don't
we've
know-
already heard that maintenance folks, when they see people in the park, they may ask them to leave, but they can't enforce it and they walk away. They don't put themselves in danger.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, I think that's why this agenda item is here, we were here two months ago, maybe, and it was brought up. And I was surprised, I didn't know that PEPs didn't, and I've been on parks for a while, I didn't know PEPs got off at 6 PM, and there were no PEPs at all. Staff.
It falls on the
After that.
maintenance people. to
Right, so I think
close
that's
the
what
park.
Steve Simon was here, at that time, and he was like, he was through Zoom. And he was telling us that, no, and we're like, well, why don't PEPs just go with them if there's a problem? And they're like, we don't have PEPs then. And then we were all like, I don't know if you remember, we were like, what, that's what, that was the genesis of this conversation. So we're gonna incorporate what you just said from that into the letter, that's okay.
As a friendly amendment, Roberta.
Yeah, or in addition.
I think that's.
I would also, I mean, again, it would be good to have PEP officers, but it sounds like a PEP officer doesn't have. They technically have authority, but they're peace officers and do not have any weapons. And if you are dealing with potentially armed or dangerous people who are still hanging out in the parks, I would say that it would be forming better relationships with the local precincts to try and get police support in dealing with closing the parks or removing people at closing time, since, you know, PEP officers aren't able to, but at least it sounds like they are doing more coordinating with local precincts. So if that can become that maybe NCOs meet them to help close the park and clear the park, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes, that are, absolutely. And also, that's a good point. I'm also gonna make the distinction between, I think a lot of people who they're trying to, are more like people homeless or people who just are sleeping on the bench that, you know,
Now, there's active drug users, like straight up
at the-
shooting up and drinking and smoking.
No, I'm sure, like I said, I want to make a distinction. I'll make it in the letter about that and then.
Yeah, it's more
absolutely.
the dangerous element.
Okay.
Do we need to put anything in about the funding, like the cost, because there was that question, and you brought it up about like, how much things are? I mean, it might just inform sort of our.
100%, I have that down.
You have that, okay.
He didn't know what it was, but
No.
I'm curious
I looked it
how
up.
much. Oh,
They average $62,000 a year, starting at about 58. And Hudson River Park, I had to send it to you.
Yeah, you said 3.8 million.
3.7 million for 2022 was in their budget.
But if you divide that by the rough 35 number, that's $108,000.
Yeah, because it's probably get a lot of overtime.
Well, and fringe is a sizable component
Yeah.
of most.
So they just had a term secured.
We can ask
They didn't break
Maureen
it out.
or
At least
Robert.
gives us a.
We can ask offline, like Robert and Maureen, and just so we can get our bearings
Yeah, I
on.
mean, the only place
pricing.
I've ever seen PEP ever in New
Thank you,
York
Brett.
City is Hudson River Park. They're paid to be there. I don't think I've ever.
And they were.
I saw them at Chelsea Waterside, and
Which is-
there were 3 of them, that's, so that's why I saw 3 of them.
What's Hudson Waterside?
I was wondering, that's right.
Let's go away. Parks with 3 staff.
They said, the PEP's director there said now they have a NYPD liaison that works
Yes.
directly with them. We like that person's number, and that person would be talking to our precinct now to coordinate this hotspot issue that we're having.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think let's use them. Sounds like it's a new position.
And I would actually extend that hotspot to most of Hell's Kitchen Parks, even though we did focus heavily on McCaffrey. A friend of mine who's just in Matthews Palmer, where I had myself a few months ago collected 50 crack vials from one tree pit, 50. He already saw a dozen more just littered there.
Matthews Palmer, you said?
Matthews Palmer. So this is a pervasive, and as Paul said, someone's cutting the lock at the handball courts at Hell's Kitchen Park and having parties in the handball court. So clearly, it's a more broad issue, not, I don't wanna focus, I know McCaffrey does have problems, but it seems like there is a very serious effort to try and fix those problems. I don't know that there's as much involvement in the other parks that have similar issues.
No, we'll write a separate McCaffrey anyway, so that's a good point, we can, yeah, absolutely. I missed that, they were cutting the lock in the Hell's Kitchen Park handball courts?
Yep, the entrance on 48th Street.
Okay. For parties?
Yep.
Anything else, or we kind of know our peps, I mean, I'll hope to get all that we said into the letter. Can we? All in favor? Sorry. Anyone against? All the other good stuff, present not eligible, okay, abstentions, that passes. Okay, McCaffrey was our next point. Anyone want to make a motion? For McCaffrey?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, second. Thank you. What do you, I mean, we obviously know this place needs help. First of all, are we all in agreement that the bike rack needs to go, or at least request for the bike rack on the sidewalk to go?
I don't agree. I don't think that are you just pushing the bikes around? I don't think that makes sense. I think the enforcement is the big issue. Consistent, the bikes are gonna go from one place to another.
No, but that's fine, but we don't want them in front of the park.
They're gonna be on the fence.
Right, but then there's more though. We just heard from the people in the block association. What an obstruction it was on the sidewalk that the new bike rack is.
It shouldn't be one without the other. In other words, we should get rid of the bike racks. But simultaneously, as a parallel effort, they have to, unlock the bikes from the fences and say that is not okay. So they can't do one without the other. They have to work together, just as this,
Roberta and Katie.
So there are the two distinct issues, I think as Marty said, the first, where I think there's like 100% unambiguous agreement is that like enforcement of against illicit activity, as well as park rules must occur. It appears that thanks like to the update that like Brian provided, that is the direction the precinct is headed. And I think we look to, receive updates on this to know how better we can like advocate for enforcement within the park. But then there is the crowding and overuse issue, which I think that one is more challenging. So it is certainly possible that you could remove the bike rack, and you could move the bike rack onto the street. You could remove it altogether, but I think Paul and Max were highlighting was that people were, they added the bike racks because people were congregating there. You remove the bike racks, then people are congregating there, you are encouraging people
I'm just gonna stop, hold on one second. They put the bike rack there because they were chaining bikes, not the
Yes.
people.
Yes.
They were chaining bikes to the fence of the
Yes.
park.
Which is
So they said,
against the rules.
right,
And so people will do this. You know, people who their bikes are their primary source of income, they will do this, their bikes will be, this will be enforced against. And then like, where do they go? On 43rd Street, 44th Street, 45th Street, and they're just in the neighborhood. They're not going away because we get rid of a bike rack. And if we have another place to put them, that's wonderful. But getting rid of the bike rack when there's not a better
well, I'm
place
gonna have to,
to
I'm
help
sorry.
people, I think it is a recipe for having just as bad, if not worse, street conditions in the area.
I
Your
do.
picture of the bush?
I wanna say something,
I
we are
call
the
it bush.
parks committee,
On
so we have
top
to
of
protect the
top.
park. I mean, we're the parks committee, so we have to advocate, I think, for the best interest of the parks and keeping the parks as its intended use. So if they wanna put a bike rack at Manhattan Plaza on 42nd Street or 43rd, fine, if that's where it is. But I really don't think that our thinking should be, well, you know what? If it's not here, it's gonna be somewhere. Well, yeah, that's fine, but this is the park and we have to preserve the sanctity
If
of
we
the
were
park.
just dealing with them putting it on the fence and they had the good idea, they tried something, they put a bike rack there. Promise it didn't work. So there never was a bike rack there. Now we
Yes,
put one there, we've caused this problem.
exactly.
So I think we should advocate to get it moved, ask transportation to find a spot for them. Two, for something later, and then to enforce cutting off bikes once a week off the fence.
Well, there's another thing,
But-
there's another thing that slipped on me, and Roberta has a point, but to Brian's point, this police activity, 7 to 11 or whatever, is just starting. I mean, if part of their everyday 24, 7 days a week was to say to people as they're putting their bikes on the fence, you can't do that. I mean, they can.
No,
be there all day.
they're there to stop the people in the
No,
park.
they're gonna be there.
Since my name was the vote, I know you guys are doing
I
better,
was just thinking if that
I
was
just,
going on.
I think we're doing a lot of wishful thinking here.
Right,
Um,
this is a committee decision,
yeah.
discussion now, so I'm
Gotcha,
you heard,
gotcha.
we gotta get it.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's what the point was, if it was stopping the bikes from going on the fences, then it wouldn't be so terrible to have the bike rack there, because it would now be on the bike rack and not on the fences, but if it's unrealistic to think that the police officers are gonna prevent the bikes from going on the fences, then that doesn't help, but I would hope that the police presence would, would curb the bicycles going on the fences, because they will be standing there every day.
Is there a regulation for no overnight hooking up of bikes on the bike rack? Does anybody
I
know?
think so.
No,
There's-
but it's also,
There should be.
yeah, but that's a different,
Yeah.
maybe, different conversation, but
It's
yeah,
part of the same conversation.
I think it's I don't wanna tread on transportation.
No, but those bike racks, remember, are not transportation's issue, they're ours. They're ours because they're on park department property and not on transportation property.
So you're saying that they,
I would say there should be a rule that says there's no overnight hooking up of bikes anywhere in that park, and that there's no hooking up of bikes on the fence at all. That rule does not exist now? I don't know.
It does exist, I thought.
No, they can't put it on.
no, wait.
There's no,
Fences-
you're not allowed to put it on the fence, that's in
Right,
place.
that's in
a given. And there should be consistent enforcement on that. And there should be consistent enforcement on not letting people keep their bikes overnight on the bike.
So the bike rack issue is what Brad exactly said. There was a problem of people hooking up the bikes on the fence, right? And Max, and this, we talked with, maybe we should put a bike rack there, because then people would stop hooking the bikes up to the fence and put them on the bike rack. And not only did they do that, but it didn't stop,
We have twice as.
Now we have now we have double the problem.
It's like when
So
you
it's-
add a lane to a highway to relieve congestion, you
Add
just
more
have
con-
more traffic.
Ask more traffic, exactly, a little bit like that, yeah.
That's a biker right there.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
biker.
Um,
I'm a
So,
scooter guy now.
where he,
You
like-
gotta give me that.
if people can't pass by or they don't, it's, I mean, the day I went, I wouldn't say it was so bad, but it definitely was, it was hard to navigate, but it wasn't like crazy. It's not even bikes anymore, it's just shopping carts full of stuff, I have pictures, a few of them, I just lined up on the sidewalk. So what I don't understand is that, and I get what you're saying, where are they gonna go? But we're now
We
talking
don't
about.
want them in front of the park.
Not in front of the park, yeah, the park is like it's like we have to not save the park, but the sanctity of the park and the true use of the park.
And a shelter.
You're saying not in my backyard, but you're not.
No, I'm not saying that, I'm saying.
Well, we can't solve the problem.
I'm saying it never was there, and it was
Yeah,
a temporary solution, and the solution didn't work. And Marty, you wanna enforce if they put the bikes back on the fence, we're asking, I'm sure they'll enforce this section of the letter, what we expect. And that's fine, and I think, let's say the shelter wasn't there, and this was just a lane, there'd be just less people, it'd probably be less of a, but it's a hurricane.
I think if we put in the letter that we wanna remove that bike rack, we have to identify like another location. Or we have to figure out, like we talked about a hub, I think a resident from 43rd Street said it would be great, because that bathroom, they use that bathroom, everyone should have access to the bathroom. Like, we need to figure out, we talked about like empty retail spaces, like, I think we need to put like a real effort into figuring out. Because people are gonna be there, and people are gonna they need access, so what do we do about that? How do we actually solve the problem, instead of just pushing it and creating a problem somewhere else? So I would like to see in the letter something that, another location, like, hey, here's where we actually think a better location
Do
for a
you
bike
think
rack
this is
would
the
be.
spot, do you think this is the spot to reiterate the ask for? I mean, I have it down, I don't know if it's gonna confuse the letter about having responsibility for the apps to, like you said, empty storefronts, or is that
Would that be
totally?
a second letter then? Can we make it a second, if we're going, Brad's way of enforcement and making sure this is what we
I don't know
want?
if it's the app's responsibility, it depends on sort of like where it is, is this on city property, is this on? I don't know, I mean, I think it takes a collective of people to kind of figure out where that should be. I don't think the apps are gonna do anything,
I like that.
to be honest.
I'm of two minds here, because I'm hearing what, you're saying just about. The community members are saying that the bike racks are the source of what's, worsening this problem. But I almost feel like it's beyond our reach to say, this is the solution we want right away. I would really, as a community, like to reiterate the fact that like crime, the hair cutting, that like all of the stuff that should elicit stuff that's happening in the parks be eliminated and have police to enforce that. Now, like, do I think that the real solution that's gonna make the community members happy is the bike rack? I think that is one additional layer to this problem, that's creating real crowding along the sidewalk so that pedestrians and community members aren't able to cross it, comfortably. But I think the first priority of this letter is to say, here's what we heard, this is really unacceptable, the condition of this park. And what we heard was that, incidentally, like the addition of the bike racks has added to more crowding of the sidewalk as well as to the park. But I don't know, I think there's sensitivity because the deliveries have the right to use the park as a resting place between the jobs and, there's probably a lot of restaurants there and that's why they deliver in that area. That's a good spot. I mean, it's between 8th and 9th, it's prime. So, I don't know, I'm just of two minds. Like, I wanna honor what they're saying as an immediate solve to what they perceive as a solution, but I don't know if that is is that suggesting too much when we're not.
We could suggest, to your point, that maybe they should put the bike racks on the avenue where the commercial parking is. take some of that. And like, I drive, right, I have to walk to get to the park. I'm not saying don't go to the park. Just saying that could be one solution, but I think you have a very good point. I think we're talking about the bikes, the big thing is the enforcement.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
should just be the number one, and, you know,
Just to have just a view of this, so they actually, if you go around the corner onto 9th Avenue and it's 43rd. I don't know who put it up, maybe it's DOT, they actually, because there are a lot of delivery bike drivers there, they actually put up metal barricades for the delivery drivers to have like it's the
they
bike
separated
lane.
from the commercial, yeah. I
And
know
yeah,
what
they
you're
separated from the traffic lanes, so they're all like kind of, it's like a bike pen, not really a bike rack, but a bike pen that they put it there, and that's where they were before this. And then the bike rack just kind of made them migrate a little bit, so. I think listen, I think it's a good idea that they tried something, right? You try something, you try and you have a solution, but if it doesn't work, I think that has to be identified that this didn't work, for the solution. This was a solution for a problem, or like a specific problem, but it did not fix the problem. So if the solution didn't fix the problem, why, I don't understand why would we then say, but keep it it doesn't make logical problem solving sense.
I agree that the solution didn't fix the problem. I think enforcement should be point number one in the letter. I think the letter should be more softer on figuring out what the solution for the bike rack is.
I like your language. But go ahead, sir.
Yeah, maybe, that what I mentioned before, there should be at least be a regulation that if the bike racks stay, they shouldn't be overnight. And if the enforcement doesn't work, we need to find a solution. If removing the bike racks would then be it's the second step. It's not the first step. We don't know what the result of removing the bike racks is gonna be. We know bikes aren't gonna go away. Where are they gonna go? And I don't think our committee should be saying, I don't care where the bikes go, just get them out of here. That's not a good thing for us to be saying. No, first step is enforcement. Second step is find a solution for the bike racks, but at a minimum, it should include no overnight bikes.
Kate.
So it's funny because this is actually circling back to an exact conversation that was had earlier this year regarding putting a delivery bike rack hub with other amenities in it on 9th Avenue, well, and it was also possibly proposed for the street in front of McCaffrey. And, while I do understand the concerns from the community and the chaos, I really don't think this is a problem that can be solved at the community board level. Because we're talking about the fact that there are people who want to congregate in public and have no place to do that. The West African delivery workers are not there purely because they're delivering for those restaurants on 43rd Street. In January, I took Google Translate on my phone and I talked to them. They are there because that's where their fellow countrymen are. That is their community. That is them trying to create some little place where they can be amongst friendly faces, people who understand their circumstances, and there's no place for them to congregate other than in the public realm. And unfortunately, they have chosen the park as a place to congregate. And it's hard because saying like, we don't want them here, doesn't really come off
Hey, I don't think anybody's saying that.
No, we're not saying that in a letter.
We're saying
For
there was a
sure,
bike rack
not
on
at
the
all.
corner, once they put that bike rack there, they just moved there because it's closer to the park.
Yeah.
But
Simple as that.
I know, again, though, this is not a problem that's gonna be solved with a bike
No,
rack or
no,
not having a bike rack.
But it's an
There's
element of a.
69,000.
There's like, exactly, there's like 100 problems with this park, we've heard, this is just one of them. And, in fact, I think we can all agree, or from what we heard, we can gather, is that the delivery drivers in the park are not even they're not the problem, they're not the illicit activity.
The drugs and
It's
the
the,
knives
there's the
and
drugs,
everything
it's,
that's in the
and it's the fights, it's
So I'm
that.
just making it about enforcement.
That's what I'm saying, let's.
It is,
talk about
but then there's
enforcement
another, there's bikes.
And say,
there's a
let's
lot of
look at the
different-
bike rack issue.
Yeah.
What's a bigger overview of that? I think enforcement's number one.
Roberta.
So enforcement, I think initially, we all agree that that is key here. I think Ella specifically brought up discussing like the testimony that we heard from individuals about the problems of the sidewalk condition. Regardless of what we would like to prescribe, explaining people are still locking these bicycles to the fence, despite the fact that the rack is there, that individuals describe not being able to pass on the sidewalk, and that is a problem. I think it would be more helpful to be more descriptive, in order to just put it on the agency in particular to help us come up with solutions,
Yes.
because focusing on whatever we think the solution is certainly helpful, but we actually need to very deeply describe the problem. Because I don't know if that's fully been expressed as we saw this evening.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Is that? Okay. Bike rack check. Or at least that topic. Anything else part of the letter? I have the player, I would like to, and I know, I wish Lowell was here because it's his thing for so many years. But I wanna reiterate, and Sally, you too, I think, fence height. If they're gonna do the new, different fencing.
Essential, all going forward,
Yeah.
I've been screaming about it forever, I don't know when they're
Okay,
gonna.
I just wanna put it out there. In fact, we can even do a separate letter on that to parks, that's even administrative, which so
Wait,
we're
why
on
are
there.
we talking fence size?
The fence, I mean, so we were going through this with Michael, when our park was built with Chelsea Green, we wanted a 7-foot fence. Because we knew teenagers were coming at night and drug users.
Okay, but we were just talking about McCaffrey,
No,
so
but
how
she-
does fence height deal with McCaffrey?
It's not, it's a separate
Oh,
thing that we can,
No.
no.
I
it's
didn't
not.
get that
They're
we
not
were
gonna
transitioning
do
to something
No,
different, I thought you were still talking about McCaffrey.
No, they're not gonna do a new fence, oh, well, they might in the renovation.
In the, under 5-player, there was discussion.
Well, they said there was.
Yeah, no, that's
playground.
already done, the fence is up there.
No, they're
Oh, the
2-player,
little
and
playground.
the little
Yeah.
kids
Oh,
play area has
right.
no fence,
Yeah,
and they expressed concern.
Right,
So
that
to
has
Katie's
to be-
point, I thought you were talking
Oh,
about.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was like, yeah.
I was going
No,
back in
yeah.
time, when I said
Okay.
Lowell, I'm sorry, about the fence, and you
Yeah.
can do like I said, but we've been on the record as that,
Yes, but we do
but we
need
can
to
do
work-
it.
You need,
Yes.
you need to mention that on
Okay.
fence, yeah, that's what you do.
So
Well,
now,
I don't know if should we advocate for a little fence around
Well,
that?
we can just describe the problem.
Yeah, I would say that while residents appreciate that a fence was added to the larger play area on the upper level, the small play area for children under 5 does not have a fence and has people congregating on it, and it makes it unusable.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Okay.
I think that's kind of basic.
on the enforcement issue, is there a rule against doing public hair cutting?
No.
Is there a rule
I'm just
against
saying,
that?
I don't think you're allowed to do it in the park.
I don't think
I
so.
think that's
right?
why Paul wants to put up the park rules so then they can enforce it. That's all he wants, and
So
so
if
language is, to
Why
explain,
can't we have
hey,
it on the park?
in this culture here, it might be something we did, but here they just don't try to do
So
it.
we need
dog
to
park,
mention
they do
that. There's just no hair cutting.
I don't
Yeah.
care what we do, rely on enforcement for anything like.
there's no smoking, we know that. No smoking in parks, that's the rule.
Listen, we don't.
All this other stuff.
On the sidewalk, it's not allowed, you know that, you never know it.
You know, would probably
So
fall under the
enforcement is like, forget about it.
rubric of conducting business in a park. I don't know, maybe there's a rule against that.
Yeah.
Maybe they were designed for recreation.
I mean, I don't think we can say, I don't think we have to say, we don't know this, know that, like Roberta and Ella was saying. I think we should, these are the problems that we are seeing that have to be addressed now. And there are, there are, yeah, but I mean, there are low-level problems, like cutting hair, and then there are high-level problems, like open drug use. I mean, there's many layers of problems, and I think our letter can say that without being very prescriptive of saying, this is what you should do, this is what you should do for grilling meat, this is what you should do for this. I mean, I think we can we can attack in the letter, go ahead. No,
Yeah, you need a permit to engage in any commercial activity, i.e. haircut. Now, if that person is getting 3 haircuts, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're, yeah, I mean,
We have a professional licensing regime for hair cutting in the state of New York, so, no, you can't.
so my kid can't cut my hair.
So on top of the hair license, you can also argue it's a personal hygiene and health problem for the city, if you want to go that route.
Yeah. We can use language like that, I mean, I do think that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I do think the bigger problem is like the fighting, the drug use, that stuff, obviously that's. Yeah, I do think the grilling of the meat and the, you know, that stuff is cultural.
There's no grilling of meat.
That's what Brian told me, the grilling.
Okay, I haven't heard that, but there is hair cutting and there is illegal bending. And those are, while low level, they're driving families out of the park,
Right.
so. I think
It's just the use of the park, okay. Are we all okay with that?
Yes.
Anything else? No? Thank you for your suggestions about the wording of the bike rack, that was good, and Roberta helped out on that, thank you very much, we can do that without saying, you know. Okay,
Should we vote on it?
yes, I was gonna say, well, I was gonna say,
Sorry.
let's vote, if everyone is for, what were the points we just talked about, raise your hand, anyone against? Present not eligible, you didn't vote, Marty.
I voted in favor.
Okay.
I just.
That's it, I think that's it, now, one more thing, does anyone wanna do any other letters of any, do you mind, can we reiterate, because we were talking about, I should have brought this up with Pat, so I'm so sorry. A fence height, does anyone mind if we reiterate our past letters? And write another one about the fence height?
Sure.
Okay,
We didn't talk about fence height tonight. Why would we-
just administrative for pets, I should have, well, I'm talking about it now, as far as a pets, as a security.
It should be basic, and when they
It's-
just go to
yeah.
the park, I mean, it's just, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, but if they don't lock the gate,
Well, they do, for the most part, so I.
if there's no enforcement, I don't understand, we're sending a letter about a fence height.
We need like, because so they can crawl over the, so go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they.
That's the problem.
So sometimes, so they're supposed to lock the fence and, at twilight and open it at door, okay? So many times, our fence doesn't get locked until 10 o'clock at night, but it does get locked.
Yeah,
So yeah, it should be locked, and it certainly is a deterrent when the fence would be 7 feet high. So we do what we can. I mean, things are gonna fall through the cracks, but we wanna be as proactive as we can, and in this day and age, we putting down.
But we're on the record many times, that we want the higher fence, and we fought in ours to stay most spots.
but talking to Parks offline, I think they might appreciate. that.
Yeah, because I think
Another, yeah.
there will be
Well, that's what you
future
have to say,
parks
yeah.
that we need to be concerned about.
We've always wanted.
Fence out.
It's like we welcome these transgressions, you know, because we don't build it properly in the first place. And then it's such a big surprise when people are coming over the fence at 3 o'clock in the morning and blasting music. I mean.
Well, they had a
Oh,
design and a philosophy of 4 foot to get people.
Yeah, I
in.
know, and why the.
Yeah, and also,
And then-
Brad, I just don't wanna give I think for the most part, parks are being locked up at night. It's not like they're all open all the time,
No, they're just-
all night, there are certain problems with certain
I
parks.
agree with that.
And so it's not like, it's just an element that's there, and it's, the fence height is more of a philosophical thing that CB4 has.
Oh,
So if anyone,
I got one other thing.
but that can be, yeah,
Of course you do.
Yes.
Well, we've been asking for 6 months, where's the money from the cruise ships?
oh, okay,
Where is it? Because we're sitting here talking about security for pets, and I'm like, where's the money that we fought for?
you're not gonna
And
like
these
this,
poor people get dumped on the west side and was killed every day, but where is the money?
you're not gonna like this, that was my new bit, I have updates for you. 2 updates. Let's do Manhattan Cruise Terminal, they're going to come in December to give us an update, the EDC. So, I was talking with with EDC about Manhattan Cruise Terminal, very bad news. They are not doing shore power. They are shelving it. They want to look at the 2028 date they told us is no longer, it's blown out of the water, literally. You can imagine my reaction on the Zoom, but, they want to now look at the cruise ship terminal in its entirety and see if it could be a big redo and look at the transportation, and I said, that's great, but that doesn't preclude you from doing shore power. And I said, what you guys have just done is make a 2-year, maybe $40 million project into a 25-year billion-dollar like, and it's gonna be rather than that,
Is there
so,
legislation that they had to do it?
so.
No, the legislation was that if it's available, it has to be used.
So
So
this,
that only affects Red Hook, it doesn't affect Manhattan.
Okay.
so. Also talking with Linda Rosenthal and, Brad Wellman on a separate Zoom, that we are going to hopefully work some legislation to force their hand. Then again, it's gonna be probably a new mayor, so the EDC might turn over anyway, and we can work on it again, but it was very exciting. It was awful, it was really awful. I mean, they just totally just blew it out of the water.
But what about the money?
So the money part of it, I asked them too. They said they were going to, if you remember, when they came to us, they were gonna start collecting money in the beginning of 2024. It was unclear if they had collected the money, but now they said they are starting to collect, they are starting to use or collect the money. When they come on in December, we can get a better sense. They're gonna start first quarter of 2025, and they said that money will be used for, get ready, maritime workforce, maritime workforce, development, thank you. And I said, whoa, this was for the community, it was very specific, we said community, the community's the one that had these awful emissions for all these years.
Let's ask Jordan, I wanna know what Jordan has to say, because this is total bullshit.
I called Carl immediately.
This is unbelievable.
And Carl said that, yes, Eric was briefed with all this from the EDC. They're still gonna try and figure out the timeline, and they said they did not agree either with the maritime workforce development. I even said to them, I go, what does that mean?
That's a money grab.
I go,
They've
that's
taken
$9
it.
million.
We made the deal for the community, we're getting polluted out.
Yeah.
We asked
I
for
know.
it, and it was supposed to be given to Eric, to the district, so he could distribute it.
Correct. That was what the initial talks were. So this is it's about $900,000. Yeah, it's about $900,000 a year. That was supposed to be distributed, so it's a big chunk every year, and now, and I asked them, so how much money needs to go to maritime workforce development, and what does that mean exactly to our community? They didn't really have that answer yet. Jordan?
I have no real updates on this. I wasn't privy to those conversations, between Carl and EDC or you and Carl or anything like that. So I don't have any real updates, but obviously I'm going to speak to, Carl and Eric about this. I've texted Carl about this tonight already. So, I don't have any updates, but I know EDC will be there in December. I'll be there in December as well. And hopefully I'll have updates before then even.
Yeah, I think Eric, they said that I think Carl said that Eric was the day before I had the Zoom that they updated Eric, so he might have some sort of, I don't know. I don't know what they exactly told.
Yeah, I just have not spoken to him directly on this issue yet.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So anyway, that's one update, which was all bad news. The second update I have, and Marty, you might have updates, is last night, related companies presented to Hell's Kitchen Land Use on the application for a zone change application for the Western Rail Yards. This all goes under the umbrella of the casino they want there, so they have to change a bunch of stuff, and they gave us the new plans, and they talked for 40 minutes about the park, they're gonna, and the shade plants and all this stuff. Anyway, it got into very detailed, Katie was there actually, I think, witnessing, but there was a lot of talk, but the land use issues were more about different zoning and measurements and that type of stuff. But I said, that related is welcome to come to our committee, because a big chunk of it, or at least a big chunk, right, Katie, that they talked about was the new park and the new
5
open
acres of
space.
continuous park.
Yeah, and they designed all this, so.
5.6 acres.
Ah.
So, they said they would, so we're gonna have a big, they'll be here in December, and then we're gonna have to have a turnaround very quickly, because then we're gonna have to put our notes from that meeting into we're gonna contribute to the, Hell's Kitchen land use.
Did they vote on anything at that meeting?
We did not vote, only because, we all have, I have to give you stormwater, we all have a section, to read, and it's gonna take a few days, weeks. And then Paul Devlin and JD are going to synthesize everything into a letter, and then take our December notes from related when they come and put it into that too. And I'm sorry, I know it's getting a little kind of, the roadmap is getting all over the place, but I just wanna play it out of how it's gonna possibly be. So we will have comment on that, but obviously only in the open space and park and environment realm.
It makes me very comfortable. I'm thinking about the culture shed that promised to only extend its cover over the open space available to the sky every time they needed it. Now they keep it out open all the time. And that open space in the eastern rail yards has been taken away by the culture shed approved by Related. It makes me very comfortable. Uncomfortable, I should say.
Yeah.
It's just a sarcasm.
That's what I thought at first.
Yeah.
I would think too, I was deciphering that. Okay, those are my two updates, the big updates. Anything from you, Marty? Updates or?
No,
New business?
I'm hoping that we get to talk about sewage and, but it shouldn't be at next meeting, because the next meeting sounds like it's already gonna go on.
Yeah, Janine, did you hear those two things? I'll email you.
Okay, thanks.
I'm really hoping we get to talk about, somebody to talk with us about stormwater and sewer separation. It's an important environmental issue that our community. Sorry. Will we go home?
Yeah.
Is anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Great. Thank you guys for a good meeting.
Have a good night.
As usual.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.